My father didn't ask me to cancel my honeymoon. He announced it. Standing in my living room just 3 days before the wedding, he wore that practiced, stern expression he reserved for business deals, looking right past the non-refundable itinerary on the counter. "Your sister needs family," he said, as if my new marriage didn't count. He wasn't asking for a favor. He was calling in a debt I didn't even know I owed. The color of the napkins was slate blue, not navy, and I had spent 45 minutes ensuring the caterer understood the distinction. My fiancé, Ethan, watched me from the kitchen island of our apartment in Briarhaven. A mug of coffee halfway to his mouth, he was smiling that quiet, patient smile that grounded me whenever my own meticulous nature threatened to spin out of control. I tapped the binder on the counter. It was 3 inches thick, color-coded, and contained the blueprint for the first day of my life that truly belonged to me. "You are doing great, Maddie," Ethan said, setting the coffee down. "The napkins will be perfect, the ceremony will be perfect, and in 72 hours, we will be on a plane to an island where the only decision you have to make is margarita or mojito." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 6 months. I was 33 years old. I was a senior project manager for a logistics firm in downtown Briarhaven. I managed international shipping schedules, mitigated supply chain risks, and handled crisis calls at 3 a.m. without breaking a sweat. But planning a wedding while managing the expectations of the Patterson family was a tier of stress that professional certifications did not cover. This wedding was mine. That was the mantra. For the first time, I wasn't fixing a crisis for my older sister, Kelsey. I wasn't editing a business proposal for my father, Ron. I wasn't mediating a passive-aggressive standoff between my parents. I was just Madeline, the bride. Go. My phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with the name Dad. Ethan glanced at it, his smile tightening just a fraction. I picked it up. "Hey, Dad. I'm just finalizing the head count for the—" "Maddie, I need you to look at that invoice I sent over yesterday." Ron Patterson interrupted. His voice didn't have a hello in it. It rarely did. It was the voice of a man who owned a mid-sized commercial fixture business and assumed the world operated on his payroll. "The formatting is all wrong on the second page. I can't send it to the client like this." "Dad, I'm getting married in 3 days," I said, keeping my tone light. Though my grip on the phone tightened, "I'm really swamped with the vendors." "It will take you 5 minutes," he said. "You are the only one who knows how to fix the header alignment. Just do it real quick for me." I looked at Ethan. He was pretending to read a magazine, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. This was the rhythm. Ron Patterson called multiple times a week for these quick favors. He had an administrative assistant, and he had a business partner. Yet somehow, the urgent, annoying tasks always fell to me. I was the reliable one, the one who didn't make a fuss. "I will look at it tonight." I said, "Now, Maddie, I have a meeting at 2. I sighed, a sound that was half defeat, half habit. "Fine, send it again." I hung up and walked to my laptop. "He did it again?" Ethan asked. "It's just a header issue," I said, opening my email. "It's faster if I just do it than if I try to explain why I can't. That is their entire strategy." "You know," Ethan said, walking over to wrap his arms around my waist. "They rely on the fact that you are too competent to say no." I leaned back into him, smelling the cedar soap he used. I knew he was right. My family dynamic was a well-oiled machine of dysfunction. My older sister, Kelsey, was 36, yet she lived her life in a perpetual state of high-octane drama. Her car broke down because she forgot to change the oil for 2 years. Crisis. She forgot to sign a permission slip for her kids. Emergency. And whenever Kelsey spiraled, my mother, Elaine, would rush in with a dustpan to sweep up the mess, usually handing the broom to me. "That's just how your sister is," Mom would say. "She feels things deeply." And Dad? Dad was the general who commanded the troops, but refused to look at the map. "That's just how your dad is," Mom would say about him. "Too, he's under a lot of pressure." I fixed the header on the invoice, sent it back. and closed the laptop with a snap. Done, I said. No more work, no more favors. Next stop, Seabird Travel Company. We had booked the honeymoon 4 months ago. It was my prize at the end of the marathon. 2 weeks in a boutique resort in St. Lucia, no cell service, private plunge pool, and a strict no-kids policy. It cost $5,000, and I had paid for nearly all of it myself. My father had offered to help with the wedding costs, but I had declined the majority of it. I accepted his payment for the rehearsal dinner, mostly because he had insisted it was his duty as the father of the bride to host. But I kept the honeymoon entirely separate. I didn't want his name on the receipt. I didn't want to owe him for the sand between my toes. We drove down to the travel agency that afternoon to pick up the physical itinerary packets. It felt delightfully old-fashioned to have paper tickets. The travel agent, a woman named Sarah with bright red glasses, handed us a glossy folder, non-refundable, non-transferable, and absolutely stunning. Sarah said, "You two are going to vanish from the face of the earth for 14 days. I am jealous. Non-refundable sounds like music to my ears," Ethan said, squeezing my hand. "It means we have no choice but to go." We walked out into the cool, salty air of Briarhaven, clutching that folder like it was a holy text. The city was gray and overcast, the way it usually was in late October, but I felt nothing but sunshine. "We are actually doing this," I whispered. "We are," Ethan said. Then my phone buzzed again. A text from Kelsey. Code red. "Do you have a glue gun? Nora ruined her flower girl shoes and I'm freaking out. Also, can you pick them up from school? I have a migraine that is blinding me." I stared at the screen. It was 2 o'clock on a Wednesday. "I can't." I typed back, "Wedding prep. Ask Mom." 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then a new text. "Mom is busy with Dad. Please. Maddie. Liam needs to go to soccer practice and I can't drive like this. I feel like my head is splitting open. Just this once?" I looked at Ethan. He was unlocking the car, whistling a tune. He didn't see the text. I loved my niece and nephew. Liam was 9, a quiet, observant boy who loved soccer and dinosaur facts. Nora was 6, a firecracker of energy who wanted to be a marine biologist and a princess simultaneously. They were the only innocent parties in the Vance-Patterson ecosystem. When Kelsey fell apart, they were the ones who sat in the rubble. I let out a groan. "What?" Ethan asked, pausing with the door half open. "Kelsey," I said. "Migraine. She needs me to grab the kids." Ethan closed his eyes for a second. "Maddie, I know," I said, "but if I don't, she will be late, and Liam will miss practice, and Nora will be sitting in the office waiting. It's on the way back. I'll just drop them at home and leave." Ethan looked at me, his expression softening into sympathy. "You are a good aunt, Madeline, but you have to stop being the third parent. I promised myself this was the last time before the wedding. I picked the kids up from the elementary school. Liam climbed into the back seat of my sedan, tossing his backpack onto the floor with a heavy thud. Nora scrambled in after him, holding a glittery sneaker with a detached sole. "Aunt Maddie!" Nora yelled. "My shoe died." "I see that," I said. Looking in the rearview mirror, "We can fix that." "How was school?" "It was okay," Liam mumbled. He looked out the window. "Are you taking us to soccer?" "Yes," I said. "Is your mom okay?" "She's in her room with the shades down," Liam said. His voice was flat, older than his 9 years. "She's been on the phone a lot." "On the phone?" I asked. "I thought she had a migraine. She talks loud when she's mad." Liam said simply. I felt a prick of irritation. If Kelsey had a migraine severe enough to prevent her from driving, she shouldn't be screaming on the phone, but I pushed it down. I wasn't going to interrogate a 9-year-old. When I dropped them off at Kelsey's house, a chaotic rental with toys strewn across the lawn, the blinds were indeed drawn. I walked them to the door, unlocked it with my spare key, and ushered them inside. "Mom?" I called out. "I'm up here." Kelsey's voice drifted down from the master bedroom. It sounded thick, nasal. "Thanks. Maddie, you're a lifesaver." There was no offer to come down, No explanation, just the voice from the dark room. I looked at Liam. You good? You have your shin guards? Yeah, he said. Thanks. Aunt Maddie. I drove home feeling a strange cocktail of guilt and relief. I had helped. I had done the right thing. But why did I feel like I had just been duped? That evening, we met my parents for a final walkthrough of the rehearsal dinner details. Ron had insisted on hosting it at the Gilded Anchor, one of the most expensive seafood restaurants in Briarhaven. He wanted to make up for the past, a vague reference to the fact that he had missed my college graduation because of a critical business trip that turned out to be a golf retreat. We sat at a round table near the window. My mother, Elaine, looked tired. She was wearing a beige cardigan and kept smoothing the tablecloth with her hand. Ron was in his element, holding court with the event manager. We need the head table moved to the center, Ron said, gesturing with a fork. And I want the bar open for an extra hour. Put it on my tab. Dad, the layout is fine, I said gently. We talked about this. We want it intimate. Intimate is for birthday parties, Ron said, dismissing me with a wave. This is a wedding. We need presents. Now, about the speeches. I have slotted Kelsey in after the best man. I paused. Kelsey isn't the maid of honor. My friend Sarah is. Kelsey didn't want to give a speech. She told me it would make her anxious. She changed her mind. Ron said, she's your sister. She should speak. I wrote down a few things she might want to mention. You wrote her speech? Ethan asked. His voice was calm, but I heard the edge in it. I gave her talking points. Ron said, it's important that we present a united front. Family is everything. People need to see that. He looked at me then, his eyes narrowing slightly. Speaking of family, Madeline, we need to discuss your availability after the wedding. I know you are going on this trip, but when you get back, I'm going to need you to be a bit flexible with your weekends. Flexible how? I asked. Ron took a sip of his scotch. Business is shifting. Kelsey is going through a rough patch. We all need to pitch in. You've been very focused on this wedding, which is fine, but real life doesn't stop just because you are wearing a white dress. I felt a cold prickle at the base of my neck. I am not just focused on the wedding. Dad, I have a job. I have a life. And you have a family. Elaine interjected softly. She looked at me with pleading eyes. Just listen to your father. Maddie, he's trying to help everyone. I didn't push it. I didn't want to fight in the middle of the Gilded Anchor. I just nodded and focused on the menu, telling myself that in 3 days, I would be on a plane. I just had to survive the next 72 hours. 2 days passed in a blur of garment bags, florist confirmations, and frantic texts from bridesmaids. The anxiety began to recede, replaced by the genuine excitement that I was marrying the best man I knew. Then came the knock. It was Thursday evening, 3 days before the wedding. Ethan was out picking up his tuxedo. I was in the living room, surrounded by favor boxes. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find my father standing on the welcome mat. He wasn't wearing his usual work suit. He was wearing a dark polo shirt and slacks, and his face was set in a grim, stony expression I recognized from the times he had to fire someone. Dad? I asked, stepping back. Is everything okay? Is Mom okay? Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He walked into the apartment, ignoring the wedding debris scattered on the coffee table. He didn't take off his shoes. He stood in the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back, looking like he was inspecting a warehouse floor. Where is Ethan? He asked, picking up his tux. He'll be back in 20 minutes. What's going on? Ron turned to me. He didn't smile. He didn't offer a preamble. Maddie, we have a situation, a family situation. My stomach dropped. Is it Kelsey? The kids? Kelsey is fine, physically, but she has an urgent work situation that has come up, a massive opportunity. She has to be away for a couple of weeks starting Monday. Okay, I said, confused. Kelsey didn't have a career that required travel. She worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental office. What kind of work situation? It's complicated, Ron said quickly. It's a training program, very intensive. If she misses it, She loses her certification. It's critical for her future, for the kids' future. That's great for her, I said, but why are you telling me this like it's a funeral? Because she can't take the kids, Ron said, and your mother and I can't take them. I have the audit coming up at the shop, and your mother's health isn't up to chasing a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old for 2 weeks. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. So, Ron continued, his voice steady, reasonable, terrifying. We need you to step up. Step up? I repeated. We need you to cancel your honeymoon and watch your sister's kids, he said. The words hung in the air, absurd and heavy. I actually laughed. A short, disbelief-fueled sound. What? Dad, I'm getting married on Sunday. We leave for St. Lucia on Monday morning. I know the timing is less than ideal, Ron said. He waved a hand as if dismissing a minor scheduling conflict. But this is family. Madeline, Kelsey needs this. Those kids need a safe place to stay. You are the only one they trust besides her. I can't cancel the honeymoon. I said, my voice rose an octave. It's prepaid. It's non-refundable. We spent $5,000. Money can be replaced, Ron said. Family cannot. I stared at him. This wasn't a request. He wasn't asking me. He was telling me, Dad, this is insane. Kelsey is a receptionist. What dental receptionist training requires 2 weeks away immediately? And why can't she hire a sitter? Or why can't you hire a sitter if it's that important? It's not just reception work, Ron said, his eyes shifting away from mine for a brief second. She's moving into administration. It's confidential. She can't hire a stranger. The kids are going through a lot. They need family. What is at stake? I asked. You keep saying it's important, but you aren't telling me anything. What is the emergency? You don't understand what's at stake, he repeated. It was the same phrase he used when he didn't want to explain why he was late for dinner. Just trust me. It's critical. The front door opened. Ethan walked in, holding a garment bag over his shoulder. He stopped when he saw Ron. Everything okay? Ethan asked, looking from my pale face to Ron's stern one. My dad wants us to cancel the honeymoon, I said. My voice trembled. To babysit Liam and Nora. Ethan hung the tux on the coat rack with careful precision. He turned around slowly. Excuse me? Ron stiffened. Ethan, this is a family matter. Kelsey has an emergency. We need Madeline to watch the children. Ethan walked over to stand next to me. He didn't touch me, but his presence was a shield. Ron, with all due respect, we are leaving Monday morning. The trip is non-refundable. If Kelsey has a work conflict, she needs to find childcare. We can help her call some agencies. Agencies? Ron scoffed. Strangers. You want to leave my grandchildren with strangers? People use nannies all the time, Ethan said calmly. Madeline is not available. She is going on her honeymoon. Ron's face flushed a deep red. He pointed a finger at Ethan. See, this is what I was worried about. You are pulling her away from the family. You get a ring on her finger and suddenly she's too good to help her own blood? I stepped forward. Stop it. Ethan isn't pulling me away. I am telling you no. I am not canceling my honeymoon for a dental training seminar. It's not just a seminar, Ron snapped. It's her future. Why are you being so selfish? You've always been the selfish one, haven't you? The accusation was so factually incorrect, it was almost funny. I was the one who did the invoices. I was the one who mediated the fights. I was the one who paid for my own college so they could focus on Kelsey during her first divorce. I am not being selfish. I said, my voice shaking. I am being a bride. My phone rang. It was Kelsey. Ron nodded at the phone. Answer it. Talk to your sister. I picked it up. Hello? Maddie. Kelsey was crying. I could hear the wet, gasping sobs. Dad told me you might do it. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you. I didn't know what I was going to do. I haven't agreed to anything. Kelsey, I said. I was looking at Ron. He was watching me with a look of triumphant expectation. Please, Maddie. Kelsey wept. I have to go. This window. If I miss this window, I can't fix it. I have to be there by Monday night. What window? I asked. I thought it was a training program. It is. It is. But the intake window, it closes. Please, Liam loves you. Nora loves you. Don't make me lose this chance. She didn't sound like someone excited about a career bump. She sounded like someone who was cornered. And the word intake didn't sound like corporate speak. Kelsey, I said, keeping my voice steady, I love you. I love the kids. But I'm not canceling my honeymoon. There was a silence on the line. Then a sharp intake of breath. What? Kelsey whispered. I am not canceling. I repeated. I looked at Ron. I saw his jaw clench. But Dad said, Dad was wrong. I said, Ron stepped forward. Madeline, you are making a mistake. I am not. I said, I will help you find a sitter. I will pay for the first week of a nanny service if money is the issue. I will pick the kids up on my way to the airport on Monday and drop them at the sitter's house. But I'm getting on that plane. Kelsey hung up. Ron stared at me. The silence in the room was thick enough to choke on. He looked at Ethan, then back at me. You are going to regret this, he said quietly. Is that a threat? Ethan asked. It's a fact, Ron said. You don't turn your back on family. He turned and walked out the door, leaving it open behind him. I stood there, shaking, the sound of the door slamming echoing in the hallway. I looked at the wedding favors on the table, the little boxes of sugared almonds that seemed so frivolous now. He's bluffing, Ethan said, closing the door and locking it. He's trying to bully you. I walked over to the window and watched my father get into his truck. He sat there for a moment, not starting the engine, just staring at the steering wheel. He didn't look like a man who was worried about childcare. He looked like a man who had just realized his favorite tool was broken. I'm not canceling, I whispered. No, Ethan said, you aren't. But as I watched my father drive away, I felt a cold knot in my stomach. I had set a boundary. I had said no. And I knew, with a certainty that made my blood run cold, that the Patterson family does not accept no. I sat down on the couch and put my head in my hands. The wedding was in 3 days, and the war had just begun. The siege began at 6 a.m. on Friday, 2 days before the wedding. I woke up to a phone that was vibrating so consistently it felt like a living thing on the nightstand. I reached for it, squinting against the blue light, expecting a vendor question about the floral arrangements or a text from a bridesmaid about hair and makeup times. Instead, I had 17 unread messages. The first was from my father, sent at 4:30 in the morning. I thought you were different. I thought you were the one who understood duty. The second was from my Aunt Linda, my father's sister, whom I hadn't spoken to in 6 months. Your father is beside himself. How can you choose a vacation over vulnerable children? We are praying for your heart to soften. The rest were variations on a theme, a chorus of digital disappointment from relatives who had only half the story, but all of the judgment. My cousin Mike sent a thumbs down emoji. My grandmother sent a long, rambling text about how family sticks together during the storm, which was ironic considering she hadn't visited my mother in the hospital when she had her gallbladder removed last year. I sat up in bed, the sheets pooling around my waist. The air in the bedroom was cool, but I felt a flush of heat creeping up my neck. They are organizing, I whispered. Ethan rolled over, blinking sleep from his eyes. Who is? Everyone, I said. I handed him the phone. He scrolled through the messages, his face hardening. This isn't a family group chat, Maddie. This is a firing squad. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. My bare feet slapping against the hardwood floor. I needed coffee. I needed a plan. My father had decided that if he couldn't command me, he would shame me into submission. It was a tactic he used on his employees, on my mother, and now, on his daughter 3 days before her wedding. But I was a project manager. I solved problems for a living. If the problem was childcare, I would solve the childcare. I would remove the excuse. I spent the morning acting as if I wasn't a bride on the verge of a breakdown. I sat at my kitchen table, ignoring the pile of wedding programs that needed to be folded. And I called the Briarhaven Nanny Agency. I had used them once for a company event. They were licensed, bonded, and expensive. I spoke to a woman named Beatrice. She was crisp, professional, and reassuring. "We have a provider available starting Monday," Beatrice said. "Mrs. Gable. She is a retired teacher, CPR certified, driving record clean as a whistle. She actually specializes in short-term emergency placements. I'll take her." I said, "I'll pay for the first week myself. Can you send over her profile and references immediately?" I paid the deposit right there on the phone, $400. It was money I didn't really have. The final catering bill was due tomorrow, and I had just written a check for the photographer that made my bank account weep. But I needed to buy my freedom. I forwarded the profile to Kelsey with a text. "Problem solved. Mrs. Gable is a retired teacher, fully vetted. I paid for the first week. She can come over tonight to meet the kids so you are comfortable." I waited. The response time was usually immediate with Kelsey, especially when she was in crisis mode. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, my phone rang. It wasn't a text. It was a call. "Maddie," Kelsey said. Her voice was tight, high-pitched. "I can't use this woman." "Why not?" I asked, putting the phone on speaker so Ethan could hear. "She's perfect. Kels. She taught second grade for 30 years. She drives a sedan." Kelsey said, "So do I." I said, "So do you." "Yeah. But it's a 1999 Camry." Kelsey said. I looked her up. "That car is too old. It's not safe for the highway. What if the brakes fail with my children inside? I can't take that risk." I rubbed my temples. "Kelsey, she's not taking them on the highway. She's taking them to school and back. It's 2 miles. It's not just the car." Kelsey rushed on. "She looks strict. Liam is sensitive right now. He needs family. He needs someone who knows how he likes his toast cut." "I can tell her how to cut the toast," I said, my voice rising. "Kelsey, this is a professional nanny. She is better at this than I am. It doesn't work." "Madeline," Kelsey snapped, "the agency asks too many questions. They want my schedule. They want emergency contacts. It's intrusive. I don't want strangers knowing my business. They need your schedule because they are watching your children," I shouted. Ethan placed a hand on my shoulder, a silent signal to breathe. "You just don't get it," Kelsey said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I need you. Why is that so hard for you? Why do you have to make everything a negotiation?" "Because I am getting married on Sunday," I said. "Just forget it." Kelsey said, "I'll figure something else out." "Thanks for nothing." She hung up. I stared at the phone. She rejected a free, professional nanny because of a 1999 Camry. "It's not about the car," Ethan said quietly. He was leaning against the counter, buttering a piece of toast. "I know it's not about the car," I said. "But what is it about? Why is she making this impossible?" "Because Ron is telling her to." Ethan said. I looked at him. "You think Dad is telling her to turn down free childcare?" "I think your dad only escalates when you provide alternatives," Ethan said. "Look at the pattern. Maddie, you offered to help with pickups. He accused you of abandoning the family. You hired a professional. Kelsey says the car is too old. If the goal was actually childcare, they would be relieved. They would be saying thank you." "So what is the goal?" I asked. "Compliance." Ethan said. He took a bite of toast. "He wants you to cancel the honeymoon because he told you to. If you solve the problem another way, he loses. It's about control." I wanted to argue with him. I wanted to defend my family, to say that they were just stressed, that they were irrational but not malicious. But I couldn't. The evidence was sitting in my text message history. "I can't let them win." I said, "Then don't." Ethan said, "But stop trying to use logic. You can't logic your way out of an emotional hostage situation." I had promised to take the kids for a few hours that afternoon, so Kelsey could prepare for her trip. I debated canceling, but I couldn't punish Liam and Nora for their mother's insanity. They were the victims here. I picked them up at 3 o'clock. Liam was wearing his soccer uniform, looking small and serious. Nora was clutching a stuffed penguin. We went to the library first for story hour. It was a normal, safe place. I sat in the back while the librarian read a book about a bear who lost his hat. Nora sat in my lap, smelling like strawberry shampoo and playground dust. For a moment, the world felt steady. Afterward, we drove to the soccer fields on the edge of town. The sky was a bruised purple, threatening rain. I sat on the damp grass, tying Liam's cleats. "You excited for your mom's trip?" I asked casually. Liam shrugged. "I guess. She's been weird." "Weird how?" I asked, pulling the laces tight. "Just rushing around," he said. "She bought a bunch of new stuff." She was packing the big red suitcase. That made sense. 2 weeks of training required clothes. "She packed her fancy shoes," Liam added. He stood up and stomped his feet to test the cleats. I paused. "Which fancy shoes?" "The sparkly ones with the red bottoms," he said, "and the black dress she wore to that party last year. The one Dad didn't like." He ran off onto the field to join his teammates. I sat there on the grass, the cold seeping through my jeans. Kelsey was going to a dental administration training seminar. It was a certification course. Why would she pack red-bottomed stilettos and a cocktail dress? I pulled out my phone. I didn't follow Kelsey on Instagram anymore. We had muted each other during the Great Thanksgiving blowout of 24. But her profile was public. I typed in her handle, Kels_in_charge. Her grid was the usual mix of inspirational quotes and blurry photos of the kids, but there was a pink circle around her profile picture. A story, posted 20 minutes ago. I tapped it. The image was a view from a hotel balcony. I recognized the skyline in the distance. It wasn't a training center in Ohio or a conference hall. It was a beach view, likely Florida or the Carolinas, but the geotag was turned off. In the foreground, there was a glass of white wine and a pair of sunglasses. The caption read, "Fresh Start Weekend. Sometimes you just have to choose yourself." I stared at the screen. This wasn't a work emergency. This was a vacation, or a rendezvous. I took a screenshot. My thumb hovered over the screen, ready to text it to my father. To scream, "Look at this. She is lying to you." But before I could, the screen refreshed. Story unavailable. I went back to her profile. "This account is private." She had deleted it. She must have realized she posted it publicly, or maybe she realized I might see it. I felt a surge of nausea. My father was demanding I cancel my honeymoon, effectively blowing up my marriage before it started, so my sister could go have a fresh start weekend with a glass of Pinot Grigio. I drove the kids home in a daze. When I dropped them off, Kelsey didn't come to the door. She yelled from the kitchen that she was on a conference call. I drove home, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I walked into the apartment, my phone rang again. It was Ron. I didn't want to answer. I wanted to throw the phone into the ocean, but I needed to know what the next move was. "Hello, Dad, Madeline," Ron said. His voice was no longer shouting. It was cold, transactional. I just got off the phone with the venue coordinator for the rehearsal dinner. "Okay," I said. "I told them to put a hold on the final payment." He said. The room spun. "Dad, the dinner is tomorrow night. You can't put a hold on the payment. They need the check or they won't open the doors." "I can do whatever I want with my money," Ron said. "And right now, I don't feel comfortable sponsoring a celebration for a daughter who turns her back on her family in a time of crisis." "You are threatening to cancel the rehearsal dinner?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Because I won't babysit? I am waiting for you to do the right thing." Ron said, "When you agree to help your sister, I will release the funds. It's your choice, Madeline. It's always been your choice." He hung up. I stood in the middle of my living room, the silence ringing in my ears. The rehearsal dinner was $5,000. I didn't have $5,000. I had spent my liquidity on the wedding vendors and the honeymoon. Ethan walked in from the bedroom. He took one look at my face and knew. "What did he do?" Ethan asked. "He's pulling the money for the rehearsal dinner." I said, "Unless I agree to watch the kids." Ethan closed his eyes and let out a long, slow breath. Okay, we can fix this. We can move it to a pizza place. We can have a backyard barbecue. We don't need the seafood tower." "It's not about the seafood tower," I cried. the tears finally spilling over. It's that he is willing to humiliate me in front of your family, in front of our friends, just to make me obey him. He is holding my wedding hostage. My phone buzzed again. It was my mother. Maddie, please, just tell him you'll do it. Just keep the peace until after the wedding. We can figure it out later. He's really stressed about money. Just say yes. I stared at the text. He's really stressed about money. That didn't make sense. Ron Patterson always bragged about his cash flow. He bought a new truck every 2 years. He was the guy who insisted on picking up the check at dinner just to show he could. Why would he be stressed about money to the point where he would weaponize a rehearsal dinner check? And why was Kelsey going on a secret trip if they were broke? Something was wrong. The pieces didn't fit. The work emergency, the fresh start photo, the refusal of the nanny, the financial threat. It felt like a frantic scramble to cover something up. I wiped my face. I am not canceling. I said to Ethan, and we aren't changing the dinner venue. I have a credit card with a 0 balance. It's for emergencies. This is an emergency. I picked up my phone and called the venue. Hi, this is Madeline Patterson. I need to update the billing information for the rehearsal dinner tomorrow. Yes, I know my father is the primary contact. I want to take over the account. I gave them my card number. It was a card I had kept for a rainy day. It was now pouring. After I hung up, I felt a strange, cold clarity. They were willing to burn everything down. I had to secure the perimeter. I spent the next hour calling every single vendor, the florist, the DJ, the photographer, the venue coordinator for the wedding itself. Hi, this is the bride, I said, over and over again. I need to place a password on my account. No changes are to be made unless the person calling can provide the password. The password? The florist asked, sounding confused. Blue Heron? I said, why? The DJ asked. Do you have a crazy ex? No, I said, my voice flat. I have a crazy father. It was humiliating. It was shameful to admit to strangers that my own family might try to cancel my flowers or change the music playlist out of spite. But as I set the passwords, I also felt a flicker of power. I was locking the doors. I was taking control. By 9 o'clock that night, I was exhausted. My eyes burned, and my head throbbed. Ethan made us grilled cheese sandwiches, and we ate them in silence on the couch. You stood up to him, Ethan said softly. I'm proud of you. I don't feel proud. I said, I feel sick. I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. The other shoe dropped at 10:15. I was checking my email one last time, clearing out the spam folder, when I saw it. An automated notification from Harbor Point Credit Union. Subject: Thank you for updating your contact information. I froze. I banked with Harbor Point, but I hadn't logged in for months. My primary accounts were with a different national bank. The Harbor Point account was an old savings account my parents had helped me open when I was 18. I kept a few $100s in it, mostly out of nostalgia. I opened the email. Dear Madeline, this email is to confirm that your address has been successfully updated to 412 Oak Street, Briarhaven. 412 Oak Street was my parents' house. I didn't authorize this. I whispered. What? Ethan asked, looking up from his book. I logged into the Harbor Point portal. My fingers were shaking so bad I mistyped my password twice. When I finally got in, I went straight to the profile settings. The address had been changed yesterday. The phone number on file had been changed to a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. And then I looked at the accounts. My old savings account was there, with its dormant balance of $300, but right below it, there was a new line item, loan ID, 8890-L, status, active, balance, $25,000. I stared at the number, $25,000. I clicked on the details. It was a personal loan, taken out 3 weeks ago. The funds had been dispersed to a checking account I didn't recognize. Ethan, I said. My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Ethan, come here. He walked over and looked at the screen. What is that? It's a loan, I said, for $25,000. In my name. Did you take out a loan? he asked, though he knew the answer. No, I cried. I didn't even know this account was active. Ethan grabbed the mouse and clicked on the correspondence tab. There were 3 letters listed as sent, loan approval notice, payment schedule, address change confirmation. They changed the address so I wouldn't get the letters. I said, the realization hit me like a physical blow. They changed it to their house. I grabbed my purse and dug out my wallet. I pulled out my Social Security card, which I had retrieved from my parents' safe a few years ago, or thought I had. I remembered something, a memory from 5 years ago. My father asking for my Social Security number, just for insurance paperwork. Maddie, you're still on our dental plan until you turn 26. I had given it to him, because he was my father, because he was the reliable one. I pulled my credit report. I had to pay $20 for an expedited report from a third-party site because I couldn't remember my login for the free one. I watched the progress bar load, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Report generated. I scrolled down past my car payment, past my student loans, past the credit card I had just used for the rehearsal dinner, and there it was. Inquiry. Harbor Point Credit Union. Date, October 1st. Inquiry. Patterson Fixture Supply. Date, September 15th. Patterson Fixture Supply. My father's company. He had run a credit check on me. 2 weeks later, a loan appeared. I looked at the address associated with the new loan inquiry. 412 Oak Street. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't identity theft by a stranger in a distant country. The call was coming from inside the house. I looked at Ethan. He was pale, his eyes wide. They didn't want you to cancel the honeymoon because of the kids. Ethan whispered, No. I said, feeling the bile rise in my throat. They wanted me to stay in town. I said, they wanted me to be busy with the kids. They wanted me distracted. If I went on my honeymoon, I might miss a notification. But if I was at their house, watching their grandchildren, picking up their mail, they stole $25,000 from me. I said, and they are using my wedding as a smokescreen to cover it up. I looked at the date of the first payment due on the loan, November 1st, the day I was supposed to return from my honeymoon. I sat back in the chair, the glow of the laptop illuminating the tears running down my face. The text from my mother echoed in my head. He's really stressed about money. He wasn't just stressed, he was criminal. And suddenly, the demand to cancel the honeymoon made perfect, terrible sense. They needed me close. They needed to control the mailbox. They needed to keep me from finding out that my father had sold my financial future to keep his own sinking ship afloat. I wasn't a bride to them. I was a credit score. I looked at Ethan. The wedding was in 2 days. We have to call the police, Ethan said. I looked at the screen. I looked at the name Ron Patterson on the inquiry line. Not yet, I said. Not until I know exactly how deep this goes. I closed the laptop. The darkness of the room felt heavy, pressing in on all sides. And the woman who was about to tear her family apart to save herself had just arrived. I waited until 8 o'clock in the morning to call my father. It was a strategic choice. I knew his schedule better than I knew my own circadian rhythm. At 8 o'clock, he would be in his office at Patterson Fixture Supply, having finished his first cup of black coffee, feeling the artificial master of the universe high that caffeine and a cleared inbox gave him. He would be approachable, or so the old Madeline would have thought. The new Madeline, the one who had spent the night staring at a credit report that listed a $25,000 hole in her name, felt like she was dialing into a hostage negotiation. Ethan sat across from me at the kitchen table. He hadn't gone to work. He had called in sick, something he never did, to sit with me while I made the call. He had a notebook open, a pen poised to transcribe whatever lies were about to come through the speaker. I put the phone on speaker. It rang twice. Patterson Fixtures. This is Ron. His voice was booming, confident. It was the voice of the man who sponsored the Little League team and shook hands with the mayor. It made my stomach turn. Dad, it's Maddie. Maddie, he said. His tone didn't drop, but it shifted. It became the benevolent patriarch. I assume you're calling to tell me you've come to your senses about the kids. I have the schedule right here if you want to. I'm not calling about the kids. I interrupted. My voice shook. Just a little. I'm calling because I got an email from Harbor Point Credit Union last night. There was a pause. It was short, maybe half a second, but it was there. A microbeat of silence where the air left the line. Harbor Point? Ron said. His voice was suddenly casual, too casual, like he was discussing the weather. I haven't banked there in years. Why would they email you? It was an alert, Dad, about an address change, to your house, and a loan. Ron laughed. It was a bark of a laugh, dismissive and loud. Oh, for heaven's sake. Madeline, it's probably junk mail. You know how those automated systems are. I get emails saying I want a cruise 3 times a week. Don't tell me you woke up early to worry about spam. It wasn't spam, I said. I logged in. There is a loan. Dad, $25,000, taken out 3 weeks ago. Phishing, Ron said instantly. He spoke over me, his voice gaining speed. It's a spoof site. They make it look real to scare you into giving them your password. Did you click the link? Maddie, I taught you better than that. You probably just compromised your computer. You need to run a virus scan. He was doing it. He was bulldozing reality. He wasn't asking, "Are you okay?" Or, "That's terrifying. Let's call the police." He was telling me I was wrong. I didn't click a link, I said, gripping the edge of the table. I went to the official site. The loan is real, and the inquiry came from your company. Dad. Patterson Fixtures ran my credit 2 weeks before the loan appeared. Another pause. Longer this time. Well, we run credit checks on all potential contractors. Ron said, it might have been a clerical error. Brenda in accounting probably typed in the wrong social. You know she's getting older. You ran a credit check on your daughter by mistake? I asked. And then a loan appeared in my name by mistake? And the address changed to your house by mistake? You are being hysterical, Ron said. His voice dropped the benevolent tone. It was now sharp, annoyed. Listen to yourself. You are stressed about the wedding. You are looking for problems. I will have Brenda look into it on Monday. Right now, we need to focus on what matters. Kelsey is dropping the kids off at your place tomorrow morning for a trial run. No, I said. Madeline, Ron warned. No, I said again. I am not taking the kids, and I am freezing my credit. Do not do that, Ron snapped. The speed of his reaction was like a whip crack. Why? I asked. If it's a mistake, freezing it won't matter. Because it creates a mess, he shouted. If it is a clerical error at the shop, and you freeze everything, it flags our system. It could trigger an audit on my end. Do you want to cause problems for my business just because you are paranoid? I looked at Ethan. He wrote one word in the notebook. Panic. I am freezing it. Dad, I said, and I'm going to the bank today. You are ruining this week, Ron said. His voice was low, venomous. You are so focused on yourself. You are tearing this family apart. Fix your attitude before the rehearsal dinner, or don't bother showing up. He hung up. The dial tone hummed in the quiet kitchen. I looked at Ethan. He didn't deny it. I whispered, he didn't say he didn't do it. He just said it was a mistake and told me not to stop him. Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. His grip was warm, solid. Freeze it, Ethan said. Right now. I felt a wave of nausea. To freeze my credit felt like an act of war. It felt like I was accusing my father of a felony, which, my brain whispered, I was, but my heart was still the little girl who wanted him to be proud of her report card. It feels dirty, I said, like I'm betraying him. He stole from you, Maddie, Ethan said gently. He stole $25,000. That is a year of rent. That is a car. That is our future house down payment. He didn't just betray you. He robbed you. I opened my laptop. It took me 45 minutes to navigate the bureaus. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I set the pins. I locked the doors. With every click, I felt a strange mixture of shame and relief. I was locking him out. I was taking back my name. When I was done, I sat back. It's done. Now we document. Ethan said, we print everything. We keep a file, and we keep moving. You have your final dress fitting at noon. You are going to go. I can't go to a dress fitting. I said, I feel like I'm going to throw up. You have to go, Ethan said, because if you don't, they see you crumbling. And if they see you crumble, they will think they can push you until you break. You are Madeline Patterson. You are a project manager. You are a bride. You show up. I showed up. The bridal salon was a sanctuary of tulle and white satin, smelling faintly of lavender and steam. It was a place designed for joy, which made my presence feel like a contamination. I stood on the pedestal in front of the trifold mirror, watching the seamstress pin the hem of my dress. It was beautiful, a sleek, architectural crepe gown that made me look taller, stronger. For a second, looking at my reflection, I forgot about the loan. I just saw a woman who was ready to be a wife. Then the door chimes rang. Maddie! I froze. I saw her in the mirror before I turned around. Kelsey. She rushed into the fitting area, bypassing the receptionist. She looked frantic, but her face was arranged in a mask of aggressive happiness. She was wearing a floral sundress that was slightly too tight, and she was carrying a bag of gourmet cupcakes. I brought treats, she announced, setting the box on the velvet bench. Oh my God, look at you. You look like a movie star. She rushed forward and hugged me. It was a long, suffocating hug. She smelled of nervous sweat and high-end perfume, probably a sample she'd swiped from a department store. What are you doing here? Kels? I asked, pulling away gently so the seamstress wouldn't prick me. I wanted to see my little sister, she said, her eyes brimming with sudden tears. I know I've been stressed. I know I've been a lot. I wanted to make it up to you. She wiped her eyes carefully, avoiding her false lashes. Thank you, I said, wary. So, I was thinking, she said, her tone shifting seamlessly from sentimental to logistical. Since you're leaving for the honeymoon on Monday afternoon, you can grab the kids Monday morning. I can drop them off at your place at 8. That gives you plenty of time to get them settled before you head to the airport. I stared at her. The disconnect was staggering. Kelsey, I said slowly, I am not taking the kids. I told you that. I told Dad that. Kelsey's face crumpled. The mask of sweetness dissolved, replaced by a sharp, petulant anger. Stop saying that, she hissed. You have to take them. Mom can't do it. Dad is busy. Who else is there? Use the nanny. I said, I already paid the deposit. I can't use the nanny, Kelsey shouted. The seamstress took a step back, startled. Why? I asked. Why, Kelsey? Tell me the truth. Where are you going? I'm going to fix things, she cried. She threw her hands up. You think I want to leave them? You think I want to miss your post-wedding brunch? I have to go. Where? I pressed. Is it a training seminar? Or is it a hotel with a beach view? Her face went white. You saw the post, she whispered. I saw it. I said, you don't understand, she said. She started crying again. But this time it felt different, desperate. It's not a vacation. Maddie, I have to go meet someone who can help us. Help us with what? I asked. With the money, she blurted out. Then she clapped a hand over her mouth. I stepped off the pedestal, ignoring the pins pulling at the fabric. What money? Kelsey? She shook her head violently. I can't. Dad said not to talk to you. He said you'd ruin it. He said you're too rigid. Ruin what? I grabbed her arm. Is this about the loan? The $25,000? Kelsey flinched. You know about that? My heart stopped. She knew. My sister knew my father had stolen my identity, and she had said nothing. Of course I know. I said, my voice cold. It's my name. Kelsey pulled her arm away. It's not a big deal. Maddie. Dad's going to pay it back. He just needed bridge capital. The business is... Cash flow is tight. He just needed a floater. He used your credit because his utilization was too high. He's done it before. He's done it before? I repeated. She looked at me, her eyes wide and terrified. Not with you. With me. He maxed out my cards 2 years ago. That's why I have bad credit. That's why I can't get an apartment. I stared at her. The pieces of my sister's chaotic life suddenly slammed into place. The constant moving, the bad luck with landlords, the beat-up car. It wasn't just that she was disorganized. It was that our father had cannibalized her financial existence, and now he was eating me. "Why are you going away?" I asked. My voice was a whisper. "I'm meeting a guy," she mumbled, looking at the floor. "A guy Dad knows. An investor. He likes me. Dad thinks if I spend some time with him, he might invest in the fixture business. Save the shop. Then Dad can pay off your loan and my cards." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My father wasn't just stealing from us. He was pimping out my sister to cover his debts. "Kelsey," I said, "you cannot go. I have to." She sobbed. "If I don't, we lose the house. Mom loses the house. Do you want Mom to be homeless?" I sank onto the velvet bench, the white crepe of my dress pooling around me like a shroud. This was the leverage. This was why they needed me to watch the kids, not because Kelsey had a job, but because Kelsey was the bait for the bailout. And if I watched the kids, I was complicit. "I am not taking the children," I said. "And you are not going." "I have to," she screamed. She turned and ran out of the shop, the bell chiming cheerfully behind her. I sat there, shaking. The seamstress approached me cautiously. "Miss?" she asked. "Do you want me to continue pinning?" I looked at her. I looked at the beautiful dress. It felt like a costume for a play that had turned into a horror movie. "Yes," I said, standing up. "Finish the dress. I'm getting married." But inside, I knew the wedding wasn't the end of the story. It was the deadline. I left the shop an hour later. My mother was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her car. She looked 10 years older than she had last week. "Maddie," she said. I didn't want to talk to her. I wanted to go home and shower the feeling of my family off my skin. But she was my mother. "Did you know?" I asked her. She flinched. She didn't ask what I meant. "He's been so stressed," Elaine said. Her hands were shaking as she clasped her purse. "The supply chain issues, the tariffs, the business has been bleeding for months. He didn't want to worry you." "So he committed fraud?" I asked. "He borrowed it," she insisted, her eyes pleading. "He considers it family money. We paid for your college, didn't we? We paid for your braces. He figures it's all one pot." "It's not one pot. Mom," I shouted. "It's my credit score. It's my life. And what about Kelsey? He's sending her off to meet some investor?" Elaine looked away. She smoothed her cardigan. A nervous tick I had watched my whole life. "Kelsey wants to help. She likes the man. It's an opportunity. You are letting him sell her." I said. Elaine covered her ears. "Don't say that. Don't you use those words. We are a good family. We are just in a rough patch." I looked at the woman who had raised me. I saw the fear in her eyes. She wasn't evil. She was broken. She had been bent so many times by Ron Patterson's will that she had forgotten how to stand up. "Do you remember?" I said, my voice quiet. "When Dad asked for my Social Security number 5 years ago? You told me it was for dental insurance paperwork." Elaine nodded, tears leaking out. "I thought it was, you knew." I said, "You knew he had a family emergency account. You told me once he kept a rainy day fund. Was that fund just us? Just our identities waiting to be used?" "I couldn't stop him," she whispered. "He yells. You know how he yells. I got in my car. I love you." "Mom," I said, "but I'm not going down with this ship, and I am not letting him take Ethan down with me." I drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot, a small gray figure against the bright white of the bridal salon. The next day, Friday, was the day we had to pick up the marriage license. It was a bureaucratic necessity that required both me and Ethan to be present at the city clerk's office. Ron insisted on driving us. I tried to say no. I told him we had errands to run, but he showed up at our apartment at 9 a.m., honking the horn of his massive truck. "Get in," he yelled out the window. "I'm taking the bride and groom in style." Ethan looked at me. "Do we do this?" "Keep your enemies close," I said. We got into the truck. The cab smelled of leather and stale cigar smoke. Ron was in high spirits, acting as if the conversation on the phone yesterday had never happened. He played classic rock on the radio and tapped his fingers on the steering wheel. "Big day coming up," he said. "Big step. Marriage is serious business. It's a contract." We sat in the back, holding hands. I felt like a prisoner being transported. When we got to the city clerk's office, the line was long. We waited for 45 minutes. Ron paced the hallway, checking his phone, shooting me looks that were half smile, half warning. After we signed the papers and paid the fee, we walked back to the truck. Ron stopped us at the door. "Before we head back," he said, pulling a folded document from his inside jacket pocket, "I have a little something for you to sign. Just a housekeeping thing." He handed it to me. It was a single sheet of paper, typed on his company letterhead. Family support agreement. I scanned the text. It was a dense paragraph of legalese. It stated that I, Madeline Patterson, agreed to assume temporary custodial oversight of Liam and Nora Vance for a period of 14 days, and that I accepted full financial and legal liability for any medical or emergency needs during that time. But there was a clause at the bottom, buried in the middle of a sentence, and agrees to guarantee any outstanding familial obligations incurred by the grantor during the custodial period. It was a trap wrapped in a babysitting agreement. If I signed this, I wasn't just agreeing to watch the kids, I was agreeing to guarantee his debts, familial obligations. It was vague enough to cover the loan. I looked up at him. "I'm not signing this." I said, "It's just for the kids." Ron said, his eyes hard, "In case they break an arm while Kelsey is away, the hospital needs a guardian signature. Then I'll sign a medical proxy form." I said, "From a hospital, not a contract typed on your letterhead that makes me liable for your debts." Ron's face turned purple. He took a step toward me. "You think you're so smart," he hissed. "You think you can outmaneuver me? I am trying to protect this family. You are trying to trap me." I handed the paper back to him. "I'm not signing it, and I'm not watching the kids." Ron snatched the paper. "You are ungrateful," he spat. "After everything I've done." Ethan stepped between us. "We are taking an Uber home," Ethan said. We walked away. We didn't look back. I heard Ron kick the tire of his truck, a dull, angry thud that echoed in the parking garage. We took an Uber to my parents' house to pick up my car, which I had left there the day before during a chaotic drop-off of wedding decor. I didn't want to go, but I needed my vehicle. When we walked in, the house was chaos. Kelsey was there, packing a suitcase in the living room. Liam and Nora were sitting on the floor, watching cartoons at maximum volume. Ron wasn't back yet. Elaine was in the kitchen, clattering dishes. I walked in to grab my keys from the hook. "Aunt Maddie!" Nora yelled. She ran over and hugged my legs. "Are we coming to your house tomorrow? Mom says we are sleeping over." I looked down at her innocent face. She had no idea. I looked at Kelsey. She was stuffing the red-bottomed shoes into her bag. She didn't look at me. "We have to talk about the plan," Kelsey said to the room, not making eye contact. "There is no plan." "Kelsey," I said, "I'm not doing it." Liam looked up from the TV. His eyes were wide, scared. "Why is everyone yelling?" he asked. "We aren't yelling, buddy," Ethan said, kneeling down. "We are just figuring out the schedule. Mom said you have to take us," Liam said. He looked at me. "Mom said if you don't take us, the bad men will come." The room went silent. "What bad men?" I asked. Kneeling down next to him. "The men who call Dad," Liam whispered. "Mom said they are going to take the house if she doesn't go on her trip. And if you don't watch us, she can't go." "So it's your fault." I looked at Kelsey. She was staring at the wall, her face a mask of misery. She had told her 9-year-old son that his aunt was responsible for them losing their home. I stood up. I walked over to Kelsey. "You are sick," I whispered. "I'm desperate," she hissed back. "Just take them, Maddie. Just for 2 weeks. Please. If you take them, I can go. If I go, I can get the money." If I get the money, Dad fixes your loan. It all goes away. And if I don't, then it all burns down, she said. And it's on you. I grabbed my keys. I pulled Ethan out the door. We sat in my car, breathing hard. They are weaponizing the kids, Ethan said. His voice was shaking with rage. I know. I said. I drove us away. But I didn't drive home. I drove to a parking lot overlooking the ocean. I needed to think. I pulled out my phone. I dialed Harbor Point Credit Union again. I needed to know the full extent of the damage before the wedding. I navigated the automated menu. Press 4 for loan services. I got a representative. A woman named Carol. I need to ask about the payment history on my loan. I said, the one ending in 8890. One moment, Carol said. I waited. The hold music was a cheerful jazz tune that made me want to scream. Okay. I see here that the loan is currently past due, Carol said. Past due? I asked. It was opened 3 weeks ago. Yes, the first payment was due at signing. Carol said, it was an expedited high-interest personal loan. The first payment of $500 was returned for insufficient funds. Insufficient funds? Yes. The account linked for payment. A business account ending in 442 rejected the debit. Patterson Fixtures. He had tried to pay the first installment from the business account, and it had bounced. He was broke. He wasn't just cash flow tight. He was insolvent. And one more thing. Carol said, we received a request yesterday to redirect all certified mail regarding this delinquency to a new address. 412 Oak Street, my parents' house. And, Carol added, her voice hesitant, there was a note on the file, a customer service note from a call yesterday. What does it say? I asked. It says, customer states she will be out of the country starting Monday and requests a hold on all collections calls until November 15th. I closed my eyes. He had called them, pretending to be me. Or maybe he had Kelsey do it. They told the bank I was leaving the country so the bank wouldn't look for me. But the demand to cancel the honeymoon. I dropped the phone in my lap. I get it. I whispered. What? Ethan asked. They don't want me to cancel the honeymoon so I can babysit. I said. Ethan looked confused. But they are fighting so hard for it. No. I said, think about it. If I cancel the honeymoon, I stay in Briarhaven. I am at their house every day watching the kids. I am physically present. So I can intercept the mail. I said, if I'm at their house, I see the late notices before they do, or what? Or they can force me to sign the refinance papers. I said, the realization hit me like a spotlight. If I leave the country, the bank starts looking for me. They call my work. They call my cell. They realize the fraud. But if I stay, if I am trapped in their house with the kids, Ron can pressure me. He can guilt me. He can put a pen in my hand and say, sign this modification or we lose the house. He needs me here to fix the mess he made. The honeymoon isn't just a trip. I said, it's an escape route, and they are trying to close it. Ethan looked at me. His face was grim. Then we leave, he said. We get married, and we get on that plane. No, I said. I looked at the ocean, gray and churning. If we just leave, they will default on the loan in my name. I will come back to a lawsuit. I will come back to garnished wages. Then what do we do? I picked up my phone. I opened my contacts. I scrolled past Dad. I scrolled past Mom. I scrolled past Kelsey. I found the number for a woman I had met at a networking event 3 years ago. A consumer protection attorney named Sarah Jenkins. We lawyer up. I said, but the wedding was in 48 hours, and my family was holding the detonator. I started the car. Let's go home. I said, I have to write a speech. A toast? Ethan asked. No. I said, a dispute letter. The reception area of Westbridge Legal Aid and Advocacy smelled faintly of burnt coffee and old carpet, a sensory combination that grounded Madeline in a stark, bureaucratic reality. She sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, watching the second hand on the wall clock tick past the 3. It was Tuesday, 4 days before her wedding, and instead of steaming her veil or confirming the florist, she was waiting to speak to a stranger about the wreckage of her financial life. A coworker in the accounting department had slipped her the name of the firm 2 days ago, whispering it like a secret over the break room counter. Madeline had expected a shark in a high-rise, but Westbridge was tucked into a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a discount beauty supply store. A heavy door opened, and a man in a gray cardigan and a button-down shirt stepped out. He looked more like a tired high school history teacher than a litigator. "Madeline Patterson?" he asked. She stood, smoothing the wrinkles in her skirt. "Yes, that is me. I am Marcus Vance. Come on back." His office was small, stacked floor to ceiling with manila folders. He cleared a chair for her and sat down, opening a notepad. He did not offer tea or sympathy, which Madeline found strangely comforting. She did not want pity. She wanted arithmetic. She wanted logic. She spent 20 minutes laying out the facts. She spoke clearly, forcing her voice to remain steady as she detailed the discovery of the credit card, the $17,000 balance, the sudden reopening of the account, and the terrifying realization that her Social Security number had been used without her consent. She mentioned the suspicious timing of the account activity and the address that matched her childhood home. Marcus Vance listened without interrupting. He took notes in a cramped, jagged shorthand. When she finished, he capped his pen and looked at her over the rim of his glasses. Madeline waited for him to gasp, or to tell her how shocking this was. "Identity theft and credit misuse," Vance said, his voice flat and matter-of-fact, "is a statistical inevitability in the modern age, but the kind you are describing, where the perpetrator has access to previous addresses, mothers' maiden names, and Social Security numbers, usually points to one specific demographic. Family?" Madeline asked. "Family," Vance confirmed. "We call it familial fraud. It is rarely done with malice in the beginning. It usually starts as a stopgap. A parent loses a job, a sibling has a medical emergency. They borrow your identity because they intend to pay it back before you ever notice. They tell themselves it is a loan, not a theft." He leaned back in his creaking chair. "But the loan never gets paid back. Does it? The emergency passes, but the access remains, and then it becomes a crutch, and then, eventually, it becomes an entitlement." Madeline felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Entitlement. That was the word that had been hovering on the edge of her consciousness for weeks. "I need to know what to do," Madeline said. "I am getting married on Saturday. My fiancé and I are looking at houses. I cannot have this hanging over me." Vance nodded and pulled a fresh form from a drawer. "First, we strip away the emotion," he said. "The law does not care that it might be your father or your sister. The law only cares about authorization. Did you sign for this debt? No. Did you benefit from the goods or services purchased? No. Then we treat it as criminal fraud. We are going to draft a formal dispute letter to the credit bureaus immediately. We are going to request the original credit agreement and a full transaction history from the issuer. And most importantly, we are going to freeze your credit at all 3 bureaus. Today, right now." Madeline watched as he typed on his computer. "If I freeze it," she asked, "what happens if someone tries to use it?" "They will be declined," Vance said. "It stops the bleeding. It sends a flag that the file is locked. If anyone tries to run a check for a loan, a new card, or even a credit limit increase, they will hit a brick wall." He turned the monitor toward her. "I am pulling your report through our secure portal to get the exact dates for the dispute," he said. "Look here." Madeline leaned in. The screen was a dense grid of numbers and dates. Vance pointed to a cluster of activity on the timeline. "You said you discovered this recently," Vance said. "Look at the utilization graph. This account was dormant for nearly 2 years. The balance was high, but static. Minimum payments were being made, likely to keep it under the radar. But look at the last 3 months." Madeline squinted at the jagged red line rising sharply. "The activity spike starting 90 days ago," Vance observed. "Just as you likely began finalized bookings for the wedding." Madeline felt sick. 90 days ago was when she and Ethan had put the deposit down on the venue. It was when they had announced the final date. They ramped up the spending, Vance said, pointing to a transaction date. $3,000 charged on the 12th of last month. Another $2,000 on the 30th. That was the week of my dress fitting. Madeline whispered. Vance looked at her, his expression unreadable but serious. It suggests desperation. Ms. Patterson. Or perhaps they knew their access was about to be cut off, so they decided to max out the utility while they still could. It is common for family members to panic when the victim gets married. Marriage creates a new legal and financial unit. They feel the control slipping away, so they grab what they can. He hit the print button. The sound of the printer whirring to life filled the small room. "We are freezing it," Madeline said, her voice hardening. "Do it." The fallout was immediate. Madeline was in her kitchen the following afternoon, trying to pack a bag for the honeymoon, when her phone vibrated against the granite countertop. It was her father. She stared at the name Dad on the screen. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She took a deep breath, picked up the phone, and slid the icon to answer. "Hello? What did you do?" Ron's voice was not a shout. It was a low, trembling growl that sounded more dangerous than a scream. "I do not know what you are talking about," Madeline said, though she knew exactly what he was talking about. "I was at the supply house." Ron said, "I was trying to adjust the terms on a materials order. Just a standard adjustment. Madeline, something I have done 100 times, and the clerk tells me there is a lock, a security freeze." Madeline gripped the edge of the counter. "My credit is my own. Dad, I decided to secure it, with the wedding coming up, and all the data breaches in the news. I thought it was prudent." "Don't give me that corporate speak," Ron exploded. The restraint snapping. "You froze me out. You embarrassed me in front of my suppliers. Do you have any idea what you have done? You have paralyzed the business." Madeline felt a wave of dizziness. He had just admitted it. He wasn't even pretending anymore. Why would freezing my credit paralyze your business? "Dad?" she asked quietly. "Unless you were using my name to secure your supplies." There was a silence on the other end, heavy and suffocating. When Ron spoke again, his voice had shifted. It was no longer the voice of a businessman. It was the voice of a victim. "I see what is happening here," he said. "This is Ethan, isn't it?" "This has nothing to do with Ethan. It has everything to do with him," Ron shouted. "He has been in your ear for months, whispering poison, making you think you are better than us, making you look down on the people who raised you. He is turning you into someone who threatens her own father." "I am not threatening you," Madeline said, tears pricking her eyes. "I am protecting myself. There is $17,000 of debt in my name that I did not spend. We are a family," Ron roared. "We move money where it needs to go to survive. You think you would have had that fancy education or that car if I hadn't juggled things? You ungrateful child. You are trying to destroy me 3 days before you walk down the aisle. I am not destroying you. I am just closing the account. You have chosen your side." Ron spat. "I hope he is worth it." The line went dead. Madeline lowered the phone, her hand trembling so badly she nearly dropped it. She sank onto the kitchen floor, pulling her knees to her chest. He hadn't denied it. He hadn't apologized. He had only attacked. The war did not stay between Madeline and Ron. It expanded, as conflicts in the Patterson family always did. To include the lieutenants, by Thursday morning, the narrative had been rewritten. Kelsey was the author. Madeline was at work, trying to finish a handover document for her colleague. When the texts began to arrive, they started with her Aunt Linda, a woman who usually only communicated in birthday emojis. "Madeline, I heard you are backing out of helping Kelsey with the boys. That is very disappointing. Family helps family." Then came a message from her cousin Sarah. "Hey, heard things are crazy. Just wanted to say, don't forget where you came from." Kelsey is really stressed. Madeline stared at her screen, baffled. She called Ethan, who was picking up his tuxedo. "They are saying I promised to be childcare." She told him, pacing the small conference room she had ducked into. "Kelsey is telling everyone I agreed to watch the boys during the honeymoon or something, and that I am backing out last minute. It is a distraction." Ethan said, his voice calm and grounding. They are trying to make you the villain so no one looks too closely at the money. I know, Madeline said, but it is working. My phone is blowing up. They are making it sound like I am abandoning the children. Do not engage. Ethan said, whatever you do not defend yourself to them. It just feeds the fire. But Madeline could not just let it burn. She felt a desperate, clawing need to fix the perception, to prove she was still a good daughter, a good sister. She called Kelsey. What are you telling people? Madeline asked the moment the call connected. I am telling them the truth, Kelsey said, her voice sharp and brittle. That you have completely checked out. Dad is a wreck. Madeline, he is walking around the shop like a ghost. And now you are too busy to even help me with the boys while I try to deal with him? I never said I would watch the boys this week. Madeline said, I am the bride, Kelsey. I have appointments every single day. See? Kelsey said triumphantly. Too busy for us. You have your new life now. We are just baggage. That is not fair. Madeline closed her eyes, trying to find a solution that would stop the bleeding. Look, she said, I want to help. I know you are stressed. How about this? After we get back from the honeymoon, I will pay for 2 weeks of professional childcare for the boys. A nanny service. I will cover the cost completely. It will give you a break and let you get a reliable schedule set up. There was a pause. Madeline thought, for a fleeting second, that she had won. She was offering a tangible solution. 2 weeks of freedom for Kelsey, thousands of dollars of help. No. Kelsey said, What? No. I don't want a stranger watching my kids. Madeline, it is a professional service. Madeline argued, They are licensed. They are vetted. It is not about the money. Kelsey snapped. The boys need family. They need their aunt. If you cannot make time for them, then just say you don't care. Don't try to buy me off with your checkbook like you are some kind of charity. Madeline realized then, with a sinking certainty, that the offer had never mattered. Kelsey did not want childcare. She wanted submission. She wanted Madeline to be physically present, inconvenienced, and under their thumb. The logistics were irrelevant. The control was the point. Fine, Madeline said softly. I guess I cannot help you then. She hung up, feeling a strange hollowness in her chest. The bridge wasn't just burning. They were actively pouring gasoline on it. The rehearsal dinner was held in the private room of a seafood restaurant by the harbor. It was supposed to be a celebration, but the air was thick with a tension that only the Patterson family seemed to be generating. Ron arrived late, wearing a suit that looked slightly too large for him, as if he had shrunk in the last 48 hours. He did not look at Madeline. He went straight to the bar and ordered a double scotch. Ethan squeezed Madeline's hand under the table. We get through tonight, he whispered. Then we are free. The dinner progressed with forced cheerfulness. Ethan's parents were gracious, filling the silence with stories about Ethan's childhood and polite questions about Ron's business. Ron answered in monosyllables. When it was time for toasts, the room went quiet. Ron stood up. He swayed slightly, his glass raised. Madeline's stomach twisted into a hard knot. To my daughter, Ron began, his voice booming a little too loudly in the small room. Madeline. He looked around the room, making eye contact with the guests, but avoiding Madeline entirely. You know, in our family, we believe in loyalty. He said, we believe that blood is thicker than anything. We believe that you stick together, no matter what, through the hard times, through the lean times. You don't turn your back on the people who made you who you are. The guests smiled politely, thinking it was a generic sentiment about family values. Ethan's mother nodded encouragingly, but Madeline heard the code. She heard the accusation. Ron turned his gaze to her then. His eyes were glassy and hard. Some people forget that, he said. Some people think they can just walk away and pretend the past didn't happen. But you can't. You always owe a debt to your family. He took a long drink, draining the glass. To Madeline, he said, wiping his mouth. May she never forget where she belongs. The guests clapped, laughing lightly at what they assumed was a father's sentimental warning. Madeline felt like she was being cornered in the center of a spotlight. He was threatening her in front of everyone she knew, and they were applauding him. She forced a smile, bringing her glass to her lips, but she did not drink. Later, while the waiters were serving coffee and dessert, Madeline escaped to the restroom. She needed 5 minutes of silence to compose her face before she had to say goodbye to everyone. The restroom door opened, and Elaine, her mother, walked in. Elaine looked tired. Her makeup was settled into the fine lines around her eyes, and she was clutching her purse with white-knuckled intensity. "Mom," Madeline said, washing her hands, "I am almost ready to go back out." Elaine checked the stalls to make sure they were empty, then turned to Madeline. She looked terrified. "He made me try to sign something," Elaine whispered. Madeline froze, the water dripping from her hands onto the tile. "What?" "2 days ago," Elaine said, her voice rushing out in a hush. "Before he went to the supply house, he brought home a stack of papers. He told me he needed me to co-sign for a line of credit for the business. He said his credit was tied up and he needed my signature." Madeline turned off the faucet. "And?" "I refused." Elaine said, "I told him I didn't understand what it was. I told him I wouldn't sign anything without reading it first." "Good. Mom, that was good." "He got so angry. Madeline, he threw the papers on the floor. He said I was useless. And then—" Elaine paused, her eyes filling with tears. Then he said, "Fine. Don't sign it. Madeline will handle it. She always does." The air left the room. Madeline grabbed the paper towel dispenser, ripping a sheet down with violence. "He said that?" "He seemed so sure." Elaine said, "He said it like it was already done, like you were his backup plan. And then today he has been on the phone with people I don't know, yelling about accounts." "Madeline, what is going on?" Madeline looked at her mother, a woman who had spent 30 years looking the other way, pretending the chaos was normal. "He was using my identity." "Mom," Madeline said, "he has been using it for a long time, and I cut him off. That is why he's angry." Elaine put a hand to her mouth. "Oh, God, I need you to promise me something," Madeline said, stepping closer to her mother. "Do not sign anything, not a single piece of paper. If he asks you again, you call me, or you call the police. Do you understand?" "I can't call the police on your father," Elaine sobbed softly. "Then call me," Madeline said. "But do not sign." She walked out of the restroom, leaving her mother weeping by the sinks. She felt a strange detachment settling over her. The man out there wasn't just a difficult father. He was a predator who had run out of prey and was looking for the next weakest link. On the drive back to their apartment, Madeline told Ethan everything. The speech. Elaine's confession. Ethan listened, his hands gripping the steering wheel of his sedan. "We need to change the plan," he said as they turned onto their street. "What do you mean?" "The departure," Ethan said. "We have the town car coming to the apartment at 6 in the morning on Sunday to take us to the airport. Ron knows that. Kelsey knows that. You think they would stop us?" "I think they are desperate," Ethan said. "And desperate people make scenes. I don't want Ron banging on the car window while we are trying to leave. I don't want Kelsey showing up with the kids, guilt-tripping you in the driveway." Madeline looked out the window. He was right. If Ron felt his control slipping, he would try to reassert it physically. "Okay," she said. "Cancel the town car. We will take an Uber, and we will leave an hour earlier. We can wait at the airport, and we don't tell them." Ethan added, "We tell them the flight got delayed and we are leaving later. We buy ourselves a buffer." Agreed. They pulled into their driveway. Madeline felt like a fugitive planning an escape, rather than a bride planning a honeymoon. Friday was supposed to be a day of peace, a day for manicures and final packing. At 10 in the morning, the doorbell rang. Madeline looked through the peephole. It was Kelsey. She had Liam, aged 4, and Noah, aged 2, with her. Madeline opened the door, leaving the chain on. "Kelsey? Open the door." "Madeline." Kelsey said. She looked harried, her hair in a messy bun, holding Noah on her hip. I am busy. Kelsey, I have the coordinator calling in 10 minutes. I have an emergency. Kelsey said, I have to get to the pharmacy for Dad. His blood pressure medication is messed up, and the insurance is fighting it. I have to go down there and sort it out in person. I can't take the boys. They are sick of the car. Madeline hesitated. Just 1 hour. Madeline, please, I am begging you. I have no one else. Mom is with Dad at the shop. It was the Dad's medication angle that did it. If Ron was having a health crisis, Madeline couldn't be the reason he didn't get his pills. 1 hour, Madeline said, undoing the chain. Exactly 1 hour. Kelsey, I have to leave at noon. Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey said, pushing the boys inside. Here is the diaper bag. Liam has a snack in there. I will be back by 11. She turned and ran back to her car. Peeling out of the driveway, Madeline looked at her nephews. They looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes. Liam held up a plastic dinosaur. Roar, he said. Hey guys, Madeline said, forcing a smile. She set them up in the living room with cartoons and juice boxes. She tried to answer emails, but Noah needed a diaper change, and Liam wanted to show her his jumping skills. She engaged with them, playing on the floor, feeling that familiar tug of love. She adored these boys. They were sweet and funny and completely blameless. 11 o'clock came and went. Madeline texted Kelsey. It is 11:05. Where are you? No reply. At 11:30, Madeline called. It went straight to voicemail. At noon. Madeline began to pace. She had to meet the wedding planner at the venue at 1 o'clock for the final walkthrough. She called Ron. No answer. She called the shop. No answer. By 1 o'clock, Madeline was sitting on the floor, building a block tower with Liam. Tears of frustration stinging her eyes. She texted the wedding planner. Family emergency. Running late. Will be there as soon as I can. It was 2:15 when Kelsey's car finally pulled into the driveway. Madeline opened the door before Kelsey could even knock. She was shaking with anger. 3 hours. Kelsey, Madeline shouted. You said 1 hour. I missed my walkthrough. Kelsey walked in, looking unbothered. She was holding an iced coffee. It took longer than I thought, she said, breezing past Madeline to pick up Noah. The line was long, and then I had to stop and get gas. You didn't answer your phone. My battery died. You are holding an iced coffee. Kelsey, Madeline said, pointing at the cup. You stopped for coffee while I was missing my appointments? Geez, Madeline. Relax, Kelsey said, shifting Noah to her other hip. The boys are fine. Look at them. They are happy. Why do you have to be so dramatic? You are going to be on a beach for a week. You can spare 3 hours for your family. It was a test. Madeline realized. It was a flex. Kelsey wanted to prove that she could dump the kids on Madeline whenever she wanted, and Madeline would take it. She wanted to prove that Madeline's time was less valuable than Kelsey's whims. Get out, Madeline said. What? Take your children and get out of my house, Kelsey scoffed. You are such a bridezilla. She gathered Liam and the diaper bag. See you at the wedding, Kelsey said sarcastically. Try to smile. When the door closed, Madeline locked it. She leaned her forehead against the cool wood. They were using everything. Guilt, duty, the children. They were weaponizing her own love against her. Her phone rang at 4 o'clock. It was a number she didn't recognize, but the area code was local. Hello? Ms. Patterson? This is Marcus Vance. Madeline straightened up. Yes, Mr. Vance. I have an update, he said. It is late on a Friday, but I wanted to catch you before the weekend. We got a preliminary response on the transaction history query we rushed. Okay, Madeline said, her breath catching. We have the metadata for the online access to the account. Vance said, the account was updated, address change and phone number update, 3 months ago. And the IP address tracks to a commercial provider. Vance said, specifically, it tracks to an account registered to Patterson Fixture and Supply. And the recovery phone number added to the account? It matches the landline for the business office. Madeline closed her eyes. So there is no doubt. She said, no doubt. Vance confirmed. This was not a hacker in another country. This was done from your father's desk. It is a direct thread between his operations and your identity. Thank you. Mr. Vance, I am preparing the affidavit for you to sign next week, he said. Enjoy your wedding. Miss Patterson, try to put this out of your mind for 48 hours. I will try. She hung up. Ethan came into the room a moment later. He saw her face and knew. He found it? Ethan asked. It was done from the shop. Madeline said. From his desk? Ethan sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Madeline stared at her phone, at the screen that had been silent for the last hour. She realized then that the feeling in her chest wasn't just sadness, it was horror. She wasn't just setting a boundary. She wasn't just having a disagreement with her difficult family. She was stepping into a conflict where her family had gambled with her financial future. They hadn't just made a mistake. They had incorporated her into their business model as a silent asset. And now that she was trying to leave, they weren't fighting for her affection. They were fighting to keep their collateral. They are terrified. Madeline whispered, Good. Ethan said, No. Madeline said, looking up at him, You don't understand. They are not terrified of losing me. They are terrified because without my credit, the pieces fall apart. They are trying to keep me close because I am the glue that holds the ledger together. She looked out the window at the setting sun. It was the eve of her wedding. The sky was a bruising purple. We have to leave, she said. Tomorrow. We get married. And then we have to run. We will, Ethan said. But Madeline knew, as she watched the shadows lengthen across the floor, that running wouldn't be enough. You couldn't run from a debt that was written in your blood. You had to bankrupt it, and that was exactly what she was about to do. The sun rose on Saturday with a brilliance that felt almost mocking. It was the kind of morning brides prayed for, a crisp, cloudless blue that promised good photographs and comfortable guests. Madeline stood by the window of the hotel bridal suite, watching the light catch on the satin of her dress hanging from the closet door. It looked less like a garment and more like a costume for a character she was struggling to inhabit. She had slept for 3 hours, her dreams fragmented by images of credit reports and padlocked doors. Now, staring at the manicured grounds of the estate where she would be married in 6 hours, she felt a strange, cold clarity. The panic of the previous week had hardened into a steel spine. She was not just getting married today. She was escaping. Her phone buzzed on the vanity. It was a text from Ethan. Perimeter secure. Coordinator has the new passwords. Your dad is downstairs complaining about the coffee, but he is contained. I love you. Madeline smiled, a small, genuine fracture in her stoicism. Ethan was treating this wedding like a tactical extraction, and for that, she loved him more than she had the day she said yes. There was a knock at the door. It was not the rhythmic tap of the makeup artist, but a heavy, authoritative thud. Madeline tightened the belt of her silk robe and opened the door. Ron stood there. He was shaved and dressed in his tuxedo trousers and a white undershirt. His jacket slung over his arm. He looked like the father of the bride, but his eyes were bloodshot, and his jaw was set in a tight line. Good morning, Dad, Madeline said, keeping her hand on the doorframe. Can I come in? Ron asked. I want to talk to my daughter before the circus starts. I have the hair and makeup team coming in 10 minutes, Madeline said, stepping back to let him in but leaving the door wide open. What do you need? Ron walked into the suite, looking around at the flowers, the champagne bucket, the dress. He nodded, as if assessing the value of the room. You did good. Maddie, he said, it is a nice spread. Expensive, but nice. Thank you. He turned to her. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a folded piece of paper. Look, I know we have had some words this week, he said, his voice dropping to a confidential rumble. I know things are tense. I want to fix that. I want us to be a family today. I want that too. Dad. Good. So, to put everyone's mind at ease, I typed this up. Just a little agreement. Nothing legal. Really. Just a family promise. He held the paper out. Madeline took it. It was typed on plain white paper, likely from the business center in the lobby. I, Madeline Patterson, agree to assume full childcare duties for Liam and Noah starting on Monday morning, the day following the wedding, for a period of 14 days. To allow Kelsey Patterson to attend to urgent family business, I agree to cancel or postpone any travel plans that conflict with this obligation. Madeline stared at the words. It was insane. It was a contract of servitude disguised as a favor, demanding she cancel her honeymoon in writing. She looked up at her father. He was smiling, but it was a tight grimace of a smile. "Just sign it, Maddie," he said, pulling a pen from his pocket. "It will calm Kelsey down. She is a wreck. If you sign this, she will know she has backup, and she can enjoy the wedding. We can all enjoy the wedding." Madeline folded the paper. She did not hand it back. She walked to the trash can by the vanity and dropped it inside. "No," she said. Ron's smile vanished. "Excuse me? I am not signing that. Dad, I am going on my honeymoon tomorrow. We have discussed this. It is just a piece of paper," Ron snapped, his voice rising. "It is a gesture of goodwill. Are you really going to be this selfish on your wedding day? Your sister is drowning. Then she should hire a swim instructor," Madeline said, her voice steady. "I offered to pay for a nanny. She refused. I am not canceling my trip, and I am not signing anything you put in front of me. Not today, not ever again." Ron took a step toward her, his face flushing red. "You think you are so smart," he hissed. "You think because you have a fancy degree and a new husband you can just look down on us? You have no idea what is at stake here." "I think I have a pretty clear idea," Madeline said. She checked the time on her phone. "The makeup artist is here." She lied. "You need to leave." Ron stared at her, his chest heaving. For a second, she thought he might strike her. The violence was there, simmering just beneath the surface of his cheap cologne. But then he laughed. A harsh, barking sound. "Have it your way." "Madeline," he said, "but don't come crying to me when the reality checks bounce." He turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the champagne glasses on the tray rattled. Madeline let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She walked to the door and locked it. Then she went to the trash can, retrieved the paper, and put it in her purse. It was evidence. The makeup artist, a cheerful woman named Chloe, arrived 5 minutes later. She chattered about contouring and lighting, providing a welcome wall of white noise. Madeline sat in the chair, closing her eyes, letting the brush strokes soothe her. But the peace was short-lived. 30 minutes later, while Chloe was applying false lashes, there was a frantic pounding on the door. "Madeline, open up! It's Kelsey!" Madeline opened her eyes. Chloe pulled her hand back, startled. "Is that your sister?" Chloe asked. "Unfortunately," Madeline said. She got up and went to the door. She didn't unlock it. "What is it? Kelsey?" "I am getting my makeup done." "It is an emergency!" Kelsey screamed through the wood. "Open the door!" Madeline unlocked it and opened it a crack. Kelsey pushed her way in. She was already in her bridesmaid dress, a sage green gown that she had complained about for 6 months. Her hair was half done, and her eyes were wide and frantic. "You have to stay," she said, breathless. Madeline signaled for Chloe to give them a minute. Chloe nodded and stepped into the bathroom, closing the door. "I'm not having this conversation again. Kelsey," Madeline said. "No, you don't understand." Kelsey grabbed Madeline's arm. Her grip was painful. "It is not just about help. I have a hearing." "A hearing?" Madeline asked, frowning. "What kind of hearing?" "A mandatory one," Kelsey said, her eyes darting around the room. With the county?" "Regarding the boys." "What? Why would the county be involved with the boys?" Because of a complaint," Kelsey stammered. "Someone filed a complaint about my hours, about me leaving them alone. I have to go to a hearing on Tuesday. If I don't have a stable family member to vouch for me, to say they are providing support, I could lose them. Madeline, I could lose everything." Madeline looked at her sister. The fear in Kelsey's eyes looked real, but the story was full of holes. "Who filed a complaint?" Madeline asked. "I don't know. A neighbor? It doesn't matter. And the hearing is Tuesday? Madeline asked. You said yesterday you needed help because you had to run the pharmacy for Dad. That too, Kelsey shouted. It is all piling up. The pharmacy, the hearing. I can't do it alone. If you leave, and I go to that court alone, they will take the boys. Do you want that on your conscience? Do you want your nephews in foster care while you are drinking margaritas? Madeline pulled her arm free. She looked at Kelsey, really looked at her. She saw the sweat on her upper lip, the tremor in her hands. Show me the summons, Madeline said. What? The court summons. If there is a hearing on Tuesday, you have a piece of paper. Show it to me. Kelsey froze. I didn't bring it. It is at home. You can pull it up on your phone, Madeline said, or call the clerk, if this is real. Kelsey, I will help. If there is a genuine threat to the boys, I will stay, but I need to see the paper. Kelsey's face twisted. The desperation morphed into ugly, sneering anger. You are such a bitch, she spat. You don't believe your own sister? I believe you are desperate, Madeline said softly, but I don't believe there is a hearing. I think you are making this up because Dad told you to get me to stay. Kelsey stepped back, her face red. You are going to regret this, she said, when it all falls down. Don't expect us to catch you. She turned and marched out. Madeline stood alone in the center of the room. She was shaking. It was a new low, inventing a custody crisis, using the children as pawns in a game of financial chess. Chloe peeked out of the bathroom. Everything okay? She asked tentatively. Madeline walked back to the chair and sat down. She looked at her reflection. She looked fierce. She looked tired. Yes, she said. Just lock the door, please. Ethan was true to his word. When Madeline finally emerged from the suite, ready to walk down the aisle, the atmosphere around the venue was tightly controlled. She saw the wedding coordinator, a stern woman with a headset, intercepted Ron near the entrance, steering him away from the photographers. Ethan met her behind the partition where they were waiting for the music cue. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, but more importantly, he looked solid. How was the morning? He asked, taking her hand. His thumb rubbed over her knuckles. Dad tried to get me to sign a contract, she whispered. Kelsey invented a court hearing. Ethan's jaw tightened. They are getting sloppy, he said. Where are the boys? Madeline asked. I hired 2 sitters, Ethan said. They are in the bridal cottage with pizza and iPads. They are safe. They are nowhere near Kelsey or your dad. I told Kelsey it was a strict no kids at the ceremony rule for the wedding party so they could focus. She was pissed, but she couldn't argue without looking like a bad mom. Thank you, Madeline said, tears pricking her eyes. Don't cry yet, Ethan smiled. Save it for the vows. The music swelled. The violinists began to play. Walking down the aisle was a surreal experience. Madeline saw the faces of her friends, her college roommates, her colleagues. They were smiling, oblivious to the war being waged behind the scenes. She saw her mother in the front row. Elaine looked small, shrinking into the corner of the pew. She caught Madeline's eye and gave a tiny, trembling nod. And then there was Ron. He stood at the end of the aisle, waiting to walk her the final few feet as tradition dictated, a compromise Madeline had agreed to months ago to avoid a scene. He took her arm. His grip was firm, possessive. Smile, he muttered under his breath, barely moving his lips. Everyone is watching. Madeline did not look at him. She looked straight ahead at Ethan. I am not doing this for you, she said quietly. She felt Ron stiffen, but he walked her to the altar. When the officiant asked who gave this woman, Ron said, her mother and I, with a boom in his voice that sounded like a challenge. He handed her over to Ethan, and for the first time that day, Madeline felt safe. The ceremony was beautiful. It was emotional in a way Madeline hadn't anticipated. When she spoke her vows, promising to be faithful and honest, the words felt heavy with specific meaning. She wasn't just promising to love Ethan. She was promising to break the cycle of deceit that had raised her. She was promising to build a home where love wasn't a transaction. Ethan squeezed her hands tight. His eyes were wet. I pronounce you husband and wife." The kiss was fierce, a seal on a pact. As they walked back down the aisle, the applause washed over them. Madeline laughed, a burst of genuine joy breaking through the tension. She was married. She was a Patterson no more. She was Madeline Hayes. The reception was a blur of toasts and dancing. Madeline moved through the room, accepting congratulations, sipping champagne, playing the part of the radiant bride. But her senses were tuned to a different frequency. She watched Ron drinking heavily at the bar, cornering Ethan's father, who looked politely trapped. She watched Kelsey sitting sullenly at the head table, ignoring her food, typing furiously on her phone. Every time Ron or Kelsey moved toward her, Ethan was there, or a bridesmaid intercepted them, or the photographer needed a shot. It was a well-orchestrated defense, but the real world has a way of piercing even the most fortified bubbles. It was 9 o'clock. The cake had been cut. The dancing was in full swing. Madeline stepped off the dance floor to get a glass of water. She checked her phone, which she had kept in her clutch under the table. There was a notification from the Postal Service app. She had signed up for informed delivery months ago to track wedding RSVPs. Delivery attempted. Certified mail from Preston Associates Debt Recovery. Location: 442 Maple Drive. Maple Drive was her parents' house. Madeline stared at the screen. The music, a thumping pop song, faded into the background. Preston Associates. It sounded legal. It sounded serious. And it was addressed to her, at her parents' house, requiring a signature. Why would a debt collector be sending certified mail to her there? Unless the address on the account had been changed back, or unless there was a new account she didn't know about. She felt a hand on her arm. She jumped. It was Elaine. Her mother looked terrified. She was holding her evening bag against her chest like a shield. "Mom," Madeline said, slipping her phone back into her clutch. "Are you okay?" Elaine looked around to make sure Ron was still at the bar. "Take this," she whispered. She pressed a small, white envelope into Madeline's hand. It was the size of a thank you card. "What is this?" "Don't open it here," Elaine hissed. "Just take it. Hide it. Mom, what is going on?" "I couldn't stop him." "Maddie," Elaine said, her eyes filling with tears. "I tried. I really tried. But he is desperate. And when he is desperate, he doesn't listen." "Stop who? Dad?" Elaine nodded. "I can't do it anymore," she whispered. "I can't pretend I don't see it. I am sorry. Madeline, I am so sorry I let it get this far." "Elaine, talk to me. I have to go." Elaine said, "He is looking for me. Just listen to what is in the envelope, and go. Go on your honeymoon. Don't come back here." She turned and hurried away, disappearing into the crowd. Madeline stood frozen, the small envelope burning against her palm. She looked toward the bar. Ron was staring at her. He raised his glass in a mock salute. Madeline turned and walked straight to Ethan. He was talking to his best man. She grabbed his hand. "We need to leave," she said. "Now? The exit is scheduled for 10. "Now," Madeline said. They skipped the sparkler exit. They skipped the final goodbye. They slipped out the side door of the ballroom and into the waiting Uber that Ethan had summoned on the fly. As the car pulled away from the venue, heading toward their hotel near the airport, Madeline finally exhaled. She pulled the envelope from her purse. "What is that?" Ethan asked, loosening his tie. "My mom gave it to me," Madeline said. She said she couldn't stop him, but she could stop pretending. She tore open the envelope. Inside, there was no card. Just a small, silver USB drive and a scrap of paper with handwriting that was shaky and rushed. "I recorded this by accident on the tablet. I didn't know how to tell you. I am sorry." Madeline looked at Ethan. "Do you have your laptop in your bag?" she asked. "Yeah." He pulled his laptop bag from the floorboard. He opened the computer, the screen glowing blue in the dark back seat of the car. Madeline plugged in the drive. There was one file, an audio file, dated 3 days ago. Madeline hesitated. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. "Do you want to listen now?" Ethan asked. "Or wait until we get to the hotel?" "Now," Madeline said. I need to know. She clicked play. For a moment, there was just static and the sound of something shuffling, fabric against a microphone. Then, Ron's voice cut through, clear and angry. Tell you, it is the only way. Kelsey, we have to stall her. Madeline's breath hitched. It was a conversation between Ron and Kelsey. Stall her how? Kelsey's voice, whiny, high-pitched. She is leaving on Sunday. The flight is booked. Then we make her miss it. Ron said. We create a crisis. You tell her you need help with the boys. You tell her anything. Just keep her in the state for another week. Why? What difference does a week make? Because the consolidation loan needs 2 signatures, Ron said. I can forge hers on the application. I have done it before. But the notary is coming to the shop on Wednesday. I need her physically in town so I can pressure her to come by. If she is in Hawaii, the deal falls through. Dad, if she finds out, she won't find out. Ron snapped. And even if she does, what is she going to do? Sue us? She is my daughter. She won't abandon the kids. She is wired that way. We use the kids. Kelsey. We tell her the boys need her. She will fold. She always folds. There was a silence on the recording. And if she freezes her credit? Kelsey asked. I already thought of that. Ron said, I have the unfreeze pin. I found it in her old bedroom desk when she was visiting last Christmas. I kept a copy. If she locks it, I unlock it. But I need the time. The recording ended with the sound of a door slamming. Madeline sat in silence. The hum of the car tires on the highway the only sound. Ethan slowly closed the laptop. His face was pale. He has your pin, he said quietly. He went through my desk. Madeline whispered, Last Christmas. He has been planning this, or keeping the option open. For months. He leaned back against the seat, running a hand through his hair. And the hearing. Madeline said, The crisis with the boys. It was all scripted. She won't abandon the kids. She is wired that way. She felt a surge of nausea. It wasn't just theft. It was a dissection of her character. He had studied her empathy, mapped out her loyalty, and weaponized it. He knew exactly which buttons to push because he had installed them. He needs me here on Wednesday, Madeline said, her voice trembling with rage. For a notary, he is trying to take out a consolidation loan in your name. Ethan said, probably to pay off the credit cards before you notice the balances, or to bury the debt in a new, bigger hole. He said he can forge my signature. Madeline said, but he needs me in town to what? To trick me into the room? Or to bully me into signing the notary book? Does it matter? Ethan asked. He is actively committing a felony, and he has drafted Kelsey as an accomplice. Madeline looked out the window. The city lights were blurring past, the certified mail. She said, that wasn't the loan, that was something else. Preston Associates, probably a collection agency for an old debt he let slip. Ethan said, or a notice of default. Madeline realized then the full scope of the trap. The honeymoon cancellation wasn't about childcare. It was a strategic imperative for their survival. If she left, the loan fell through. If the loan fell through, the house of cards collapsed. They are waiting for us to cancel, she said. They are sitting at home right now, waiting for me to text and say I'm staying to help Kelsey. Ethan took her hand. What do you want to do? He asked. Madeline looked at her phone. She thought about the father who had walked her down the aisle hours ago, whispering about appearances. She thought about the sister who had used her own children as bait. She opened a new text message group. She added Ron and Kelsey. It was 11:30 at night, her wedding night. She began to type. Her thumbs flew across the screen, fueled by a cold, burning anger. I am not canceling the honeymoon. We are leaving as scheduled. I know about the loan. Dad, I know about the notary, and I know you have my pin. She paused. She needed to be clearer. She needed to be a lawyer, not a daughter. I have reset all my security PINs as of this morning. The credit freeze is absolute. If any attempt is made to unlock my file, it will trigger an immediate fraud alert to the police. I have the audio recording of your conversation about forging my signature. Mom gave it to me. She hesitated on that line. Would it endanger her mother? But she realized Elaine had made her choice. Elaine had given her the weapon. Do not contact me. Do not contact Ethan. Do not use the boys as an excuse. Any further communication must go through Marcus Vance at Westbridge Legal Aid. If you show up at the airport, we will call airport security. Madeline stared at the message. It was a nuclear bomb. It was the end of family dinners, the end of Christmases, the end of the illusion she had spent 26 years polishing. She looked at Ethan. If I send this, she said, her voice breaking, I lose them. Ethan looked at her with infinite sadness and infinite love. Maddie, he said softly, you lost them a long time ago. They just forgot to tell you. Madeline nodded. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. She pressed send. She watched the progress bar slide across the top of the screen. Delivered. Then she turned off her phone. She leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder as the car sped toward the airport hotel. She was grieving. Yes. She felt a hollow ache in her chest where her family used to be. But beneath the grief, there was something else. A lightness. The heavy, suffocating blanket of obligation was gone. She was an orphan now, in a way, but she was free. The morning sun on Sunday filtered through the hotel curtains, painting stripes of pale gold across the duvet. It was the kind of light that usually signaled the beginning of a lazy, coffee-scented morning. But for Madeline, it felt like the harsh, fluorescent glare of an interrogation room. She sat on the edge of the bed, her suitcase open but ignored. Beside her, Ethan was buttoning a fresh shirt, his movements precise and quiet, attempting to maintain a bubble of calm, but the bubble was already pierced. Madeline's phone, which she had turned on 5 minutes ago, was vibrating against the nightstand with the relentless rhythm of a jackhammer. 17 missed calls from Ron, 9 missed calls from Kelsey, 32 text messages from various numbers, some she recognized as aunts and cousins, others unknown. She picked up the phone, her hand feeling heavy, as if the device weighed 50 pounds. She did not open the texts. She scrolled to the voicemail. There was one new message from Kelsey. Time-stamped at 3 a.m. Madeline pressed the speaker button. At first, there was only the sound of wet, ragged breathing. Maddie. Kelsey's voice whimpered, sounding small and broken. Please, you have to pick up. I don't know what to do. The boys are crying. Dad is tearing the house apart looking for files. He is saying it is all my fault. Please, just call me. We can fix this. I am scared. Madeline felt a tug in her chest. The old, conditioned reflex to save her little sister. But then, the tone shifted. The whimpering stopped abruptly, replaced by a sharp, venomous intake of breath. You are such a coward. Kelsey screamed into the phone, the audio distorting with the volume. You think you can just run away? You think you are better than us? If you get on that plane, I hope it crashes. I hope you lose everything. You are ruining my life. Madeline, you are killing this family. The message ended with a click. Madeline stared at the phone. The transition from victim to abuser had taken less than 10 seconds. It was a perfect microcosm of her entire life with the Pattersons. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. Do not listen to any more, he said softly. I needed to hear it. Madeline said, her voice surprisingly steady. I needed to remember why we are leaving. She stood up, closing her suitcase with a decisive zip. Let's go, she said. They checked out of the hotel in silence. The plan was simple. They would drive back to the apartment to pick up the 2 large checked bags they had packed last week, then head straight to the airport. Their flight to Hawaii departed at 2 o'clock. The drive to the apartment was tense. The city looked different to Madeline. The streets she had driven for years now felt like enemy territory. Every time a truck passed that looked like her father's work van, her heart hammered against her ribs. They pulled into the driveway of their apartment complex at 10 o'clock. And there he was. Ron was standing next to his white work van, which was parked diagonally across Madeline's designated spot. blocking the garage. He wasn't pacing, he wasn't shouting. He was leaning against the hood, his arms crossed, wearing his Sunday best, a polo shirt and khakis, looking for all the world like a grandfather stopping by for a visit. But the horror was in the back seat. Through the tinted windows of the van, Madeline could see two small heads, Liam and Noah. He brought the kids. Madeline whispered, the blood draining from her face. He brought them to an ambush. Stay in the car, Ethan said, unbuckling his seatbelt. No, Madeline said. He is waiting for me. If I don't get out, he will just stand there until we miss the flight. She opened the door and stepped out into the bright morning. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and impending violence. Move the van, Dad, Madeline said, keeping her distance. Ron smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were flat, hard stones. Good morning to you too, Mrs. Hayes, he said, dragging out her new name like an insult. Going somewhere? We are going on our honeymoon, Madeline said. You know this. Please move the van so we can get our bags and leave. I can't do that, Ron said casually. I have the boys for an hour. Kelsey had a situation. She needed to clear her head. So I thought, why not bring them to see their favorite aunt before she abandons them? He tapped on the window. The glass rolled down. Liam, 4 years old and confused, looked out. Hi, Aunt Maddie, he said, waving a plastic action figure. Grandpa said you have a present for us. Madeline felt sick. Physically sick. He was using Liam as a human shield. Hi, buddy, Madeline said, forcing a gentle tone. I do love you, but Grandpa and I need to talk for a second. Can you roll the window up and play with your game? Ron rolled the window up before Liam could answer. He turned back to Madeline, his smile vanishing. Here's the deal, he said, his voice dropping to a low, controlled pitch. You are going to come with me to the shop, right now. We have some paperwork to sort out. It will take 20 minutes. You sign the acknowledgement for the consolidation loan. I notarize it, and then you can go to your beach. I am not going anywhere with you, Madeline said, and I am certainly not signing a loan. You don't have a choice, Ron said. I do, actually. She took a step back toward Ethan's car. I am going to ask you one last time to move the van. If you don't, we are leaving in the Uber I'm about to call, and the police can deal with your vehicle. Ron laughed, a dry, humorless sound. You think you can just walk away? He asked. You think I am playing games? Madeline, I have already filed the preliminary paperwork. If you leave the state, you are fleeing a financial obligation. You will be arrested when you land. You are lying, Madeline said, though a sliver of doubt iced her stomach. You can't file paperwork on a Sunday. I have friends, Ron said. I have connections you don't know about. People who know how to expedite things. You are doing this whether you like it or not. Ethan stepped forward then. He didn't look aggressive. He looked incredibly calm, which Madeline knew was dangerous. He held his phone up. I am on the line with the dispatcher, Ethan said clearly. I am requesting a welfare check and a civil standby. I have informed them that there is a man blocking our driveway with 2 minor children in the vehicle, refusing to let us leave. Ron's face went a shade of purple that clashed with his polo shirt. You called the cops on me? He spat. On your father-in-law? I called the authorities to mediate a dispute. Ethan said, They are 3 minutes away. Ron pushed off the van, taking a threatening step toward Ethan. You hang up that phone, he growled. The dispatcher is recording everything, Ethan said, not moving an inch, including your threats. Ron stopped. He looked at the phone, then at the van where the grandchildren were watching, then at Madeline. He was calculating. He realized that a scene with the police involving the kids would not look good for whatever narrative he was trying to spin. Fine, Ron said. Backing off? You want to play hardball? Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. He started to walk around to the driver's side of the van. Just then, Madeline's phone rang. It wasn't Ron. It was a local number she had saved recently. Marcus Vance, her attorney. She answered immediately. Mr. Vance? Miss Patterson? Excuse me. Mrs. Hayes. Vance's voice came through, sharp and urgent. I am glad I caught you. I have an alert on my system. What is it? Madeline asked, watching her father pause with his hand on the door handle. A docket number has just been generated in the county civil court. Vance said, "It was filed electronically late last night. It is a confession of judgment." A what? A confession of judgment, Vance repeated. It is a legal instrument where a debtor agrees to a judgment against them without a trial. It is usually buried in business contracts. This one lists you as a guarantor for Patterson Fixture and Supply. I never signed that. Madeline said, "The document uploaded claims you did." Vance said, "It is dated 6 months ago. The creditor is a private equity lender. They are moving to garnish, if this goes through. They can freeze your bank accounts and garnish your wages starting immediately. They are claiming a default of $45,000. Madeline looked at her father. He was watching her, a smug, satisfied look on his face. He knew who was on the phone. "He forged it," Madeline said into the phone. "He forged a confession of judgment." "We will fight it," Vance said. "But Madeline, listen to me. This is serious. If you leave the state, they might try to claim you are absconding. So I have to stay?" "No," Vance said firmly. "You go. You go on your honeymoon. We deal with this through the courts. If you stay, he wins. He wants you there so he can intimidate you into validating the debt. Do not validate it. Go. I will file an emergency motion to stay the execution of judgment tomorrow morning claiming fraud." "Thank you," Madeline whispered. She hung up. She looked at Ron. "You filed a confession of judgment," she said. "You forged my signature on a guarantee 6 months ago." Ron shrugged. "Business is business. Maddie, you were part of the company. You benefited from the roof over your head. It is only fair you share the liability." "There is no liability," Madeline shouted, losing her cool for the first time. "It is your debt, your mismanagement." Just then, another car screeched into the driveway. It was a beat-up sedan. Elaine got out. She looked terrible. Her hair was unbrushed, and she was wearing a raincoat over her pajamas. She ran toward them, her eyes wide. "Stop it!" Elaine screamed. "Just stop it!" Ron turned to her. "Get back in the car." "Elaine," he barked. "No!" Elaine yelled. Shaking, she ran to Madeline and grabbed her arm. "Go, Madeline. Just go. He is crazy. He has been up all night printing things. Mom, he forged a judgment." Madeline said, "I know." Elaine sobbed. "I saw the papers in the trash. He practiced your signature for hours." "Shut up," Ron roared, stepping toward his wife. "Stop using her," Elaine screamed back, her voice cracking. "Stop using our daughter as an ATM. She is a person. Ron, she is our child." The silence that followed was deafening. It was the first time in 26 years that Madeline had ever heard her mother defy him. Ron looked at Elaine with cold, dead eyes. "You are useless," he said quietly. "Both of you. Ungrateful and useless." Before he could continue, a third car pulled up. It was Kelsey's SUV. Kelsey jumped out. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked terrified. "Dad!" she yelled. "Dad! The bank called me." "Shut up." "Kelsey!" Ron yelled. "Not now. They said the account is frozen," Kelsey cried. Ignoring him, she ran up to the group, looking between Ron and Madeline. "They said there is a fraud alert on the business account because of the Social Security number mismatch. Dad, my paycheck is in there. The rent check for my apartment is in there." Ron turned on Kelsey. "I told you to wait," he shouted. "I told you I would fix it once she signed." "But she didn't sign," Kelsey wailed. "And now the money is gone." She turned to Madeline, tears streaming down her face. "Fix it. Madeline, you have to fix it. Just call the bank and tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you authorized the use." Madeline looked at her sister. "If they are ever in danger, if they ever need food or a safe place to sleep, I will be there. I will pay for a lawyer to help you. Kelsey, if you want to get away from him," she pointed at Ron, "but I will not pay his debts. I will not sign his loans, and I will not sacrifice my marriage to clean up secrets I didn't create." She turned to Ethan. Get the bags. Ethan opened the trunk of their car, grabbed the 2 suitcases, and wheeled them toward the waiting Uber that had just pulled up to the curb. Ron stepped forward as if to block them, but the sound of a siren in the distance made him stop. The police Ethan had called were close. "You walk away now," Ron said, his voice low and venomous. "And you are dead to me." Madeline stopped. She looked him in the eye. "Dad," she said, sadly, "I have been dead to you for years. I was just a ghost with a credit score." She turned her back on him. She hugged her mother briefly. "Call me when you are ready to leave him," she whispered. Then she got into the Uber. Ethan slammed the door. "Drive," Ethan said to the driver. As the car pulled away, Madeline looked back. She saw Ron standing in the driveway, a king in a crumbling kingdom, shouting something at Elaine while Kelsey sobbed against the hood of the van. Liam was still watching from the window, waving his plastic dinosaur. Madeline waved back, her heart breaking, until the car turned the corner and the house disappeared. The airport was a blur of motion and noise. Madeline moved through it like a sleepwalker. Check-in, security, the tram to the terminal. She felt lightheaded. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving her shaky and exhausted. They sat at the gate, waiting for boarding Group A to be called. Ethan went to buy water and a sandwich. Madeline stared at the tarmac. The giant planes were taxiing, preparing to lift off into the sky. It represented freedom. It represented a line drawn in the sand. Her phone buzzed. She flinched. She had meant to turn it off, but she needed the boarding pass. It was a text message, from a number she didn't know. She opened it. It was a photo. The image was grainy, taken in low light, but the details were clear enough. It was a document, a legal filing. At the top, it read, "Petition for conservatorship." Underneath, in the section for proposed ward, was the name, Madeline Patterson. Underneath that, in the section for petitioner, was the name, Ronald Patterson. Madeline's blood ran cold. A conservatorship. He was trying to claim she was mentally incompetent. He was trying to take control of her legal and financial life by declaring her unfit. A second text message popped up below the photo. "Turn around or lose more than a vacation. We have the medical records from your therapy sessions in college. We have the statements from Kelsey about your erratic behavior. The judge will sign the temporary order tomorrow morning if you are not here to contest it." Madeline stared at the screen. It was the nuclear option. If he got a temporary conservatorship, he could legally freeze her assets, annul her marriage, and force her into treatment. It was a desperate, insane gambit, but with a friendly judge and enough fabricated evidence. It could work for long enough to ruin her. He had dug up her therapy records from when she was 20, when she had sought help for anxiety caused by him. He was weaponizing her mental health. Ethan returned with the water. He saw her face. "What?" he asked, dropping the bottle. "Look," Madeline whispered, handing him the phone. Ethan looked at the photo. He read the text. His face went hard, harder than she had ever seen it. "He is trying to Britney Spears you," he said. "He says he has statements from Kelsey." Madeline said, "About my erratic behavior. That is why she was screaming at me. That is why she was inventing the crisis. They were building a case file." Ethan looked at the gate. The agent was picking up the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now inviting passengers for Flight 492 to Maui to begin boarding. We have to go back," Madeline said, tears welling up. "If the judge signs that order tomorrow—" "No," Ethan said. He grabbed her hands. "Madeline, look at me." "He is holding a petition," Ethan said. "It is a piece of paper. He hasn't filed it yet. If he had filed it, he wouldn't be texting you a threat. He would be letting the police stop you at the gate. He is bluffing. He is trying to scare you into turning around." Ethan said, "He knows that once you get on that plane, you are out of his reach. He knows that a judge isn't going to grant a conservatorship over a fully employed, married woman with no history of hospitalization just because her father says so. He is throwing spaghetti at the wall. But what if he isn't? What if he has a judge in his pocket? Then Vance will handle it." Ethan said, We have the recordings. We have the texts. We have the evidence of the credit fraud. If he tries to file this, we will countersue him for malicious prosecution and abuse of process. We will bury him. Madeline. He looked deep into her eyes. But we are not turning around. If you turn around now, you are telling him that his terror works. You are telling him that he owns you. Do you belong to him? Madeline looked at the phone. She looked at the grainy photo of the document that was meant to be her cage. No, she said, I belong to myself. Then let's go, Ethan said. He picked up their carry-on bags. Madeline stood up. She took the phone. She typed one final reply to the unknown number. File it. I will see you in court, but I will be appearing via video link from Hawaii, and I will be pressing charges for extortion. She hit send. Then she blocked the number. She blocked Ron. She blocked Kelsey. She blocked the landline at the shop. She blocked the landline at the house. She took Ethan's hand. They walked toward the jet bridge. The woman at the counter scanned Madeline's phone. The machine beeped a happy green tone. Enjoy your flight. The agent said, Thank you. Madeline said, I intend to. They walked down the tunnel. The air got cooler. The smell of jet fuel and recycled air filled her nose. It was the smell of escape. As she stepped onto the plane, Madeline felt a physical weight lift off her shoulders. The debt was still there. The legal battle was just beginning. Her family was a smoking crater of betrayal and greed. But she was moving. She was flying. She found her seat. 4A. She sat down and buckled the belt. The click of the metal latch sounded like the locking of a vault. She looked out the window as the plane pushed back. She saw the baggage handlers, the tarmac, the distant skyline of the city where she had spent her life trying to be good enough for people who only wanted to consume her. The engines roared to life. The plane began to taxi. Madeline Hayes closed her eyes. She didn't pray. She didn't cry. She simply breathed. The plane accelerated. The force pushed her back into the seat. And then, the bump, the lift. They were airborne. Below them, the cars were tiny specks. The house on Maple Drive was invisible. The shop was irrelevant. Madeline opened her eyes and looked at the clouds rushing past. She was free. And for the first time in her life, her credit and her soul belonged entirely to her. Thank you so much for listening of The Credit Trap. This story has been a wild ride of family betrayal, financial manipulation, and ultimately, finding the strength to walk away. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from today? And what would you have done if you were in Madeline's shoes at the airport? Would you have turned around to fight the conservatorship threat? Or would you have gotten on the plane like she did? If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of karma, justice, and revenge, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Share your thoughts in English below. I read every single comment. Until next time, stay safe, protect your peace, and check your credit reports.